Our story begins with a fat otaku who called himself the Nobody. Because of this, he suffered a lot in school, so he decided to study, believing that if he worked hard and made a lot of money, all his problems would eventually disappear from his life. That might have actually worked, except for one thing. He truly was a fat otaku and not intelligent at all. After finishing school, the only opportunity he had was to become a sparring partner, and that was only because the requirement for becoming a sparring partner was to weigh more than 100 kilograms. Soon after, the same situation as before repeated itself as he was beaten by the other members of the gym. Alone, he cried, unable to understand why everyone insisted on bullying him. Shortly afterward, the supervisor, Mai Rangsing, approached and asked Showu to take care of the monthly report. Awkwardly, he tried to argue that his job was only to be a sparring partner, but in response, the supervisor flexed his muscles and stared at him in an intimidating way. Thus, the young man immediately agreed to handle the report and deliver it as quickly as possible. Once the task was accepted, Mai Rangsing called the employee again, but Showu only turned his face away. At that moment, the other team members emerged from the shadows, also asking for help with their schedules. Faced with all the new requests, the young man's expression changed completely. Still, he smiled and agreed to take care of everything for the team. By midnight, the scene shifted. Sitting in front of the computer, he regretted not refusing, since he would not even receive a raise. Suddenly, a sharp pain struck his chest. At that moment, he remembered the doctor's warning about the risk of dying if he did not lose weight. Desperate, he reached out to the side, trying to call an ambulance. Soon, a message appeared on his phone informing him that the service had been suspended for lack of payment. With nothing left to do, the young man simply accepted that he was going to die right there. Before passing away, he decided that he needed to change and could no longer continue living that way. After that, he moved the mouse cursor to delete the folder named Study Materials. Once the action was completed, he laid his head on a desk, finally at peace with himself. His last wish was not to be a fat, repulsive otaku in the next life. However, his fingers slipped and accidentally clicked on Send to All. Instead, just before a new message appeared. To his surprise, Mai Rangsing seemed impressed to see that Showo's report had already been completed. Meanwhile, the content of the studies folder was revealed. At that moment, the entire office team reacted in shock to what appeared on the meeting room screen. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Right after, he was reborn as a baby and questioned whether that was truly a new beginning. 20,000 years passed on the Kyushu continent. Then, a young girl held his arm while calling him by name. With that, Tu Shangqiu reminded him of their promise to explore the world together beyond the mountain. She then commented that she had trained there for 20,000 years without even realizing time had passed. Finally, the young man claimed he was just an ordinary person who would only cause trouble if he went down the mountain. Kyoyu, however, could not understand how an ordinary person could lift a mountain. At that moment, he confirmed to himself that he had truly reincarnated. His new life was as the young master of demonic sect. For this reason, he hid away to train since the sect was in decline and could not protect him. The girl only smiled, thinking about how this company saved her from boredom. The lessons of his past life motivated him to train rigorously for 2 millennia. After so much time, however, he finally realized something while walking by her side. Suddenly, a giant serpent appeared in front of them, making him understand that he had been transported into a fantasy world. Even so, he still saw himself as a genuine Wu Lingen, but without spiritual roots. As soon as the creature lunged forward, he thought that, aside from his physical strength, he had nothing else. In an instant, he prepared a punch with a clenched fist. The blow struck the serpent's body directly, releasing a massive shockwave. Immediately afterward, the force tore through the creature and opened a clearing in the forest. Small debris rained down from the sky as he observed the result. With that, the young man suggested they eat serpent meat, and the girl agreed enthusiastically. His companion looked at him with admiration, impressed that he had defeated a golden core-level dragon. Suddenly, a voice interrupted them as they prepared to cut the meat. At that instant, a man on a floating sword accused them of stealing the dragon he had been hunting. Instructor Cho Chun-Hu of his Wenshin Academy declared that they were members of the demonic sect. The young man stared back at him, his expression unchanged. Soon after, he denied the accusation, wondering how the man had discovered them. Without a second thought, he bowed to the ground and began apologizing. The instructor observed the pair, knowing that they were only a fox demon and a common person without spiritual roots. Thus, he decided there was no need to waste more words on them. Immediately afterward, he charged with his sword, using the second form of his technique. As the weapon was launched toward him, Wu Lingen caught it in midair, leaving the instructor stunned. Even while bowing, he apologized for having caught the sword, leaving Xiaoyu confused about the situation. The opponent refused to believe it, as a common person could never stop his flying sword. Therefore, he turned to the girl and accused her of secretly helping the young man. After a moment of hesitation, his expression shifted. The man then decided that both of them would die for their arrogance and attacked with 2 swords. Once again, Wu Lingen caught the blades in the air, astonishing his opponent. Soon he bowed again, asking the instructor to kill him but not to harm Xiaoyu. The instructor then summoned dozens of swords and launched them toward the girl. Without hesitation, the young man stepped in front of her as the weapons approached. With swift movements, he dashed among the blades to intercept them all. In the end, he was holding every single sword and apologized for catching them on instinct. The opponent froze, not knowing how to react to the situation. Quickly, his demeanor changed and he apologized, calling the young man senior and claiming it had been a misunderstanding. Then he requested his swords back so he could leave immediately. At that moment, an attack grazed past his head. A burst of fire was launched from the forest, causing a massive explosion in the distance. Wu Lingen then agreed to return the weapons, unable to refuse the request. With that, the instructor looked at his own body, noticing the damage it had taken. The young man simply turned and said they needed to return home to cook for his father and the others. As they began to walk away, Xiaolu turned to the man to speak about what happened. With the dark aura, she threatened him, telling him not to dare mention the matter to anyone. Terrified, the instructor agreed multiple times to her order. Soon after, the young man called her to leave and she ran to catch up with him. Alone, the man watched the two disappear in the distance, carrying the giant serpent. As soon as they were out of sight, he collapsed his knees, wondering who those people were. His expression darkened as he thought their happiness would not last long. Immediately afterward, he burst into laughter, planning to tell the Academy's old ancestor what had happened so that the demonic cultivators would pay the price. Thus, Shoyu commented that even though Lingen could defeat cultivators, he insisted on calling himself an ordinary person. But he denied being a match for a cultivator. But the girl argued that the man had clearly tried to kill him. Since he had no spiritual roots, the young man explained that was why he trained his body even harder. As they walked, she noticed that he did not need to train so relentlessly all the time. Even so, the young girl found it adorable how her companion seemed unaware of his own strength. Soon, the scenery changed, revealing the mountains in the distance. Next, the young man carried the pieces of meat to the entrance of a cave and announced that he was going inside. However, the sign of the entrance warned about a demonic presence and unforgivable crimes. Inside, a large cauldron was placed over the fire. Suddenly, an imposing man emerged from the shadows, threatening death to anyone who dared invade the demonic sect's territory. Yet unfazed, Wu Lingen simply smiled and announced that he had brought serpent meat. Immediately, the group's expression changed completely as they welcomed the small visitor. Behind bars, everyone begged for the meat, saying it smelled wonderful and that they were starving. Then the young man explained that despite appearances, these were uncles who cared for him. Even so, the leader of the group only turned his face away, dissatisfied. At that moment, Wu Di, the sect leader, asked if the boy still considered him a father, since he had not seen him for 3 hours. But the son justified himself, saying that hunting and preparing the food had delayed him, though his father retorted that he knew what was happening outside. Then the elder accused the girl, trying to convince him to descend the mountain again. But the young man denied it. The leader's response is a furious shout, absolutely rejecting the request. The outburst left both the son and Xiaoyu shocked. Even sealed for 20 millennia, Woody claimed he still remembered the cunning of the righteous sex. With that, he asked if the boy wanted his own father to bury him, which made the young man apologize. However, he hesitated for a moment before continuing. Soon after, the patriarch exploded, saying he had heard the same excuses for 20,000 years. The son's attitude left the man completely speechless. Still, Lingen declared that he no longer wished to remain in the forest, even if it meant being hunted or killed. Then the other members called him naive, reminding him that he was the last of the family and that leaving would be suicide. At that moment, Xiaoyu interrupted the discussion to reveal that they had encountered a righteous cultivator, and she revealed that her companion had defeated him with a single punch, although he tried to claim it had only been a misunderstanding. Hearing this, Woody silently questioned whether the boy had really grown so strong. Yet he still shouted that Lingen was just an ordinary person without spiritual roots. Next, he asked how his son would face stronger cultivators, leaving the girl worried. Thus, the father warned him not to think himself invincible just because he had defeated a few enemies. But the young man replied that he had never spoken of being invincible and that he was not interested in such things. His true goal, he revealed, was to break the seal and rescue them, something he could never achieve in the forest. Then Moody turned to the others and asked if they had told this to his son, but they all denied it. At that moment, the boy remembered how his father, even while sealed, had always cared to protect him. Now that he was grown, he declared it was his turn to protect the elder. At this point, Xiaoyu interrupted to remind him of something they had forgotten. She explained that since her companion had no demonic aura, his identity would not be discovered, and the others agreed. Even so, Woody refused to accept the risk because any advancement would release his aura and kill him. Then the son turned to leave, asking not to be blamed for a decision he had already made. As soon as he turned his back, he heard his father shout for him to stop. Right after, an object was thrown toward him. He caught it in the air while Xiaoyu also glanced at the item. Not understanding, the young man asked what the object in his hands was. The elder explained that it was the qualification for the Ascension Academy exam, suggesting it as a first destination. Immediately, the group grew excited at the news, since the academy was famous for training golden core level cultivators. Then Xiaoyu questioned the decision, but Wu De argued that the most dangerous place was also the safest. With that, the young man understood that there he would find countless cultivation paths and might discover one for himself. Next, he began packing his belongings into a large bundle. Soon when he appeared ready to depart was an immense load announcing his departure for Ascension Academy. Curious, the girl asked how his father had obtained the item, but he refused to answer. Then Wudi admitted that he could no longer protect his son. Therefore, sending him to the academy was the best way to keep him alive. While the young man consulted a map, in secret, the patriarch spoke to the girl about the mystery surrounding Lingyam's body. He then asked her, a nine-tailed fox of near-emperor level, to protect him. Xiaoyu raised her hand, confirming that she understood the gravity of the matter. She then asked who would bring them food after she and the boy left. In the background, the whole group froze as they realized the situation. Finally, Wudi shouted for everyone to eat, since that would be their last good meal. Xiaoyu then said her farewells and told him to enjoy the moment. As soon as she turned, he shouted for her to wait, but the girl immediately warned that she would not bring food anymore. Then, with a serious expression, the father reminded her that the world was on the verge of collapse. Right after, he warned her that the hidden power within Lincoln needed to awaken, for time was running out. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the imposing entrance of Suwenshin Academy. There, one of the instructors organized the line, ordering everyone to maintain order and not cut ahead. The candidates were also instructed to prepare their tokens for the entrance exam. Carrying his badge, young Wu Lingyan observed the place, hoping not to draw anyone's attention. The instructor explained that the tokens had to be inserted into the mouth of a stone lion to detect spies. Soon after, he called the first in line to step forward. The candidate placed the item into the statue, which glowed and validated his entry. With approval granted, the young man thanked them and entered the academy. Next, the instructor called for the next candidate in line. In the background, the new participant panicked, wondering if his token was fake and if it would be detected. Suddenly, a scream drew everyone's attention in line. The examiner announced that a demonic cultivator had been found, while the statue seized the candidate's hand. One of the bystanders explained that the stone lion would not let go when detecting an anomaly, leaving the observer terrified. The captured man begged for mercy, but the instructor ordered the guards to take him away. Right after, the examiner and another candidate pointed at the boy, informing him it was his turn. Then the instructor called him suspicious because of his large pack and ordered him to insert the token. Repeating to himself so you would not make a mistake, he approached the stone statue with a trembling hand. Suddenly, the other candidates felt a tremor run through the courtyard floor. With that, the young man placed his hand inside the mouth of the stone lion. The instructor confirmed that the admission ticket was in order as the statue glowed. Right after a sigh of relief, the creature's eyes lit up and a red energy began to emanate. In an instant, the statue clamped down on his arm with force. The lion's head detached from his base and remained locked onto his arm. Then the rest of the statue's body crumbled into pieces, leaving the examiner stunned. He stood frozen, not understanding what had happened, with the head still stuck on his arm. Awkwardly, the young man apologized and tried to fix the damage by gathering the pieces from the ground. Then the instructor accused him of being a demonic cultivator and ordered his immediate arrest. While being restrained by the guards, he tried to argue that the ticket was valid. At that moment, the examiner explained that the lion automatically attacked whenever it sensed demonic energy. Only then did the young man realize that he had been contaminated by demonic aura from living among the others. Suddenly, Shoei's voice echoed across the courtyard, ordering everyone to stop. As she appeared, the fox questioned the careless actions of the cultivators, while everyone else wondered who she was. The instructor then asked why a member of a monster clan was interfering in academy affairs. With that, the young girl grabbed Lingyan's arm and introduced herself as his guardian. The revelation surprised the other candidates, who whispered that the boy must have an important background. Next, Shoeiyu suggested that the examiner verify the origin of the admission ticket. Looking down at the object on the ground, the man recognized it as belonging to the legendary #1 sect in the world. She then explained that the sect had been destroyed 20,000 years ago, and that Lingyan was his only successor. One of the candidates questioned how the most powerful sect in the world could have been destroyed. Immediately after, he himself added that the name of the sect was literally just that. With that, Shoeiyu argued that it was understandable the ticket would be contaminated with demonic energy. The instructor reflected that the situation was delicate and had to be handled carefully. Even so, you warned the two not to do anything suspicious and to behave themselves. Then, Shoeiyu told the young man not to be so tense as they walked. So that no one would suspect, she advised him to act as usual, and he repeated her suggestion. Thus, the scene opened up to reveal the architecture of Suwenshin Academy. Soon, a crowd of new students gathered in front of a tower that welcomed them. From above, the academy instructor, Mei Yamli, silently observed them all. Next, Master Huang Luhong approached to ask about that year's new students. The examiner commented that there were quite a few promising candidates in the courtyard. Among them were Beidi from Yujin Peak and the young Master T. Shenkao from the Huan sect. Wasting no time, the young man invited the girl to practice dual cultivation with him. But with a serious expression, she simply told him to disappear from her sight. Around him, others whispered that the girl was a super genius, the daughter of the master at Yujin Peak. Even so, Baidi concluded that his father was right and none of the newcomers that were worth his attention. From above, Instructor Mag commented on the quality of the students but hesitated for a moment. He sensed that something strange had mixed in with the group while Mu Lingyan tried to act normally. Master Huang laughed, thinking he was just someone eager to show off his newly acquired strength. The examiner Mai, however, doubted that with such flashy behavior he would pass the first test. Right after, one of the assistants rushed out in a hurry. From atop the tower, the instructor floated into the air and drew everyone's attention, leaving them impressed. He then introduced himself as May Yamli, the one in charge of the evaluation, and announced the start of the test. He explained that only those who passed all the stages would become disciples of the academy. As he observed, young Lingen felt that the face of that instructor looked familiar. With that, the man questioned him directly, asking why he was staring at him like that. Not knowing what to say, the boy hesitated for a moment. Soon after, he pointed at a loose, shiny thread dangling from the instructor's robe. At the remark, the examiner remained silent in the air for an instant. Suddenly, he quickly descended toward the group of students. With a frightening face, he congratulated the newcomer and said he looked forward to his results. Instructor May, now frozen in place, tried to start speaking. Then he scolded another person for not having stopped at the designated spot. They to watch the scene, not understanding why the examiner could not fly and how the newcomer dared to point it out. Master of Wong commented that the boy was in trouble for having offended that man. In an instant, the instructor freed himself from the thread that had trapped him. Then he explained that it had only been to lighten the mood and announced the start of the first phase of the test. Wu Lingyan was left wondering if the examiner was insane and whether it was really necessary to tear his clothes for the test. Two other students noticed the man's strong muscles and intimidating aura. Soon, one of them identified him as the legendary bearer of the sacred punching bag body. This ability prevented active cultivation and the use of spells. Instead, the body absorbed attacks and captured spiritual energy, becoming stronger with each strike. With it, the user became immune to all attacks from opponents of the same level. Thus, the sight left Lingnan shocked, wondering if only masochists could become cultivators. Then the instructor announced that each candidate had to hit him with a punch so he could evaluate their potential. Smiling, the man thought that by controlling the test, he could ensure the boy's failure. He then pointed at Wu Lingyan and ordered him to start first. But the young man only warned him to get ready, since he was quite strong. The examiner laughed, saying that not even a nascent soul-level cultivator could harm him. However, just as he continued to boast of his resilience, he was interrupted. A punch struck his face squarely before he could finish the sentence. The shockwave blasted through the instructor and destroyed part of the academy behind him. All the other candidates stood frozen, completely paralyzed by the scene. Meanwhile, Master Huang looked out the window, sweating and unable to believe what he was seeing. He then turned his eyes toward the massive crater the punch had created, carving a path through the mountains. With a pale face, he realized that everything was over for him. Amid the rubble, the instructor was sitting on the ground while smoke rose from his body. With his eyes rolled back and foam in his mouth, the man looked completely unconscious. Not understanding the gravity of the situation, the young man turned to the others and asked if that meant he had passed. In response, the other candidates only stepped back in silence. From the rooftops above, a fox leaped nimbly. Studying Shou Yu observed the scene, noticing how Lingyan had already drawn everyone's attention. In the crowd, one of the students questioned how the examiner had been affected, since theory said otherwise. With that, Baidi turned to the newcomer and asked how he managed to accomplish such a feat. Meanwhile, Master Huang approached the instructor lying on the ground. He quickly assessed that the force of the punch was nearly the level of a late nascent soul. Suddenly, the man's eyes snapped open. In an instant, he stood up from the ground. He then rushed toward the young man with a strange expression. As soon as he reached him, he accused him of having struck him off guard and in the face, while the youth apologized. Then one of the candidates concluded that the sacred body had not resisted because he was caught by surprise. The examiner warned that the previous test did not count and that he would be disqualified if he used tricks again. Next, a golden aura enveloped his body, activating the ability. One of the students recognized the technique as a supreme defensive move of the sacred body. The instructor then boasted, saying that not even at full strength could he be moved. Without hesitation, the youth landed a direct punch to his stomach. The fist sank into the man's body, but he did not move from his spot. The crowd commented in awe that the examiner had not even shifted his legs from the impact. Master Quan, however, realized that something was wrong with that reaction. Soon after, it was revealed that Instructor Mai had fainted standing up. Master Huang then intervened, announcing that everyone had passed the first round. The candidates celebrated the news while still wondering about the young man's level of strength. Next, a student approached to introduce himself to Wu Lingyan. He revealed himself as Zhao Ma, the successor of the Huwen sect, and listed his abilities. With that, he decided to accept Lingyan as his sworn brother, leaving the young man uncomfortable with the idea. In an instant, the other candidates also approached, asking to be his younger brothers. Soon after, a boy introduced himself as Tianji, from the Tianji sect, offering precise information. With an apology, he admitted that although he collected data, he had nothing on his new brother. At last, Lingyan felt a sense of familiarity with his friendly attitude. Then Tianji asked which sect or school he belonged to. Awkwardly, Wu Lingyan answered that he was merely a solitary cultivator. Suddenly, the crowd parted to make way for the genius of Yuzhen Peak. With that, the young girl accused him of liking attention and promised to show him the difference between them. Right after, the girl turned and walked away while he watched her. In the background, a hooded figure followed the scene among the crowd. Master of Guam then shouted for no one to celebrate too soon. He then pressed a red button on a controller he was holding. The ground beneath the candidates lit up, and they all wondered what was happening. Amid a tremor, the group found themselves transported into a dark and closed place. From the outside, The structure revealed itself to be a massive metallic cube. Inside the cube, several robotic creatures and mechanized mates appeared before them. As soon as they were transported, the candidates found themselves surrounded by warriors in giant armor. From above, the scene revealed how small they were compared to the machines encircling them. With a smile, Hwang Luhong introduced himself as the master of the Jicho Pavilion and the examiner of the second phase. He then explained that all the puppet mechanisms in the chamber had been created by his pavilion. The test consisted of dodging hidden weapons that would be launched continuously against them. Soon, you lit a stick of incense and warned that the challenge would last until a flame burned out. Chen Jie then began to warn that the weapons fired by the puppet mechanisms were dangerous. In an instant, the eyes of the machines lit up, confirming that they were real. With that, the robots began firing energy blasts at the candidates. The students ran desperately to dodge the attacks, which exploded all over the ground. The machines continued firing non-stop. Mei were struck by the explosions and gave up on the test almost immediately. From afar, Hwang Luhong observed that the boy from the Huan sect was doing well. Zhang activated his technique and stood still while the beams of light curved around him. With a smile, he boasted that no one could strike him from behind with that ability. Right after, however, a beam of light struck him squarely in the chest. The examiner only covered his face, pretending he had not jinxed him. He then noticed that the girl from the Yujin sect was also proving to be surprisingly strong. Suddenly, the cultivator's expression changed as she realized something. Meanwhile, Wu Lingen buried one of the robots into the ground. He quickly concluded that this way he would not be hit. The examiner then shouted furiously that the test was about speed and not to be misinterpreted. The examiner threatened him with disqualification if he broke any more puppets, but he only apologized. With that, young Baidi ended up remembering her father's advice. Suddenly, Instructor Mei grabbed the device, saying there was no need to waste words on the boy. He then pressed the buttons himself so that the youth would feel the full power of the puppets. The parts of the robots began to detach and merge in the center of the room. In an instant, they all fused into a single giant robot, surprising the solitary cultivator. Soon, Qianzhai explained that the strength of that fusion surpassed the golden core level and questioned the difficulty of the test. He also warned that the puppet's weapons were coated with a deadly poison. With arrows in his back, the young man only said he felt dizzy, while the other scolded him. The examiner argued that such a thing could kill someone, but Instructor Mag did not care. Smiling, he asked if they really wanted that arrogant boy to pass the test. The giant puppet then fired a barrage of poisoned needles from his hands. In a swift motion, Wu Lingen dodged all the projectiles with ease. After evading, he stopped and looked back as if he had realized something. Looking again, he noticed that the other candidates had been struck by the attacks and he apologized. Irritated, Instructor May decided to send even more puppets after him using the control device. In an instant, the young man found himself completely surrounded by the giant robots. With an aura of energy forming around him, he prepared for the confrontation. From afar, the instructors warned him that he would be disqualified if he damaged any more puppets. Collapsed on the ground, GMG promised to burn incense for him, while the others noticed the danger had lessened. The girl from the Yujin sect only observed, thinking that this was the result of liking to show off. Him surrounded, the young man remained still, staring at the robots. With that, he decided that was the only way to resolve the situation. He then bent his knees and gathered strength in his legs. With a powerful leap, he shot toward the giant puppet and struck it with a crushing blow. The instructor stared in shock, unable to believe he had managed to fly while the puppet was destroyed. The other students wondered what his level was, since flying with swords required the golden core stage. Falling on the ground, Qianzhai explained that he was not using spiritual aura to fly. In fact, he was only using the strength of his own legs to jump. The other candidates watched in disbelief at the power of his body, while TNG suggested he take a break. Instructor Mai, however, knew he could not stay in the air for long and prepared to attack. Immediately, several spears were aimed at the exact spot where he would land. Unable to destroy the puppets and risking losing points, the young man needed to think of a solution. Seeing the Yujin sect cultivator dodging the attacks, he seemed to have found the answer he was looking for. With that, he landed precisely on the tips of his spears on the ground. In an instant, the young man stopped right in front of the girl. Right after, he knelt before her. With a smile, he asked what she would do next. The sudden approach left her stunned, wondering if this was the pervert her father had warned her about. In a swift move, the boy hid behind her, while the swordswoman defended herself. Thus, he continued using her body as a shield against the attacks. Irritated, the cultivator shouted for him to stop, but he only apologized, saying it was the only way out he had found. Without hesitation, the young girl tried to strike him with her blade. With that, she decided she would knock him down first before anything else. Attacked by projectiles and by his partner at the same time, the young man cried out for help when he realized he was in trouble. Collapsed on the floor, Qianji gave a thumbs up, impressed with Lingen's skill in dodging blows. From afar, Instructor Mai laughed while controlling the attacks, wondering how the two would escape. With that, the cultivator looked at the instructors and noticed that the incense stick was almost burned out. In an instant, An idea came to his mind as he observed the examiner. He then stopped running and turned to face Bagdi as the arrows flew toward him. Right after, he filled his lungs with a deep breath. The instructors watched the scene, unsure if he was preparing to die. As he exhaled, a massive gust of wind created a vortex that pushed everyone back. The force of the blast dragged the other candidates across the arena floor. Even so, Instructor Mai held the controller tightly, believing it was nothing more than a bluff. The wind was so strong it even lifted their hair. The examiner warned him not to think he would pass the test, but the young man asked to pause for a moment. With that, he pointed out that the test's incense stick had already burned out completely. The examiner Huang realized that the breath had accelerated the burning and wondered what was wrong with the boy's body. Chen Jed and shouted that Chief Lingyan actually had a deeper purpose behind his action. With that, the gust toward the clothes of several candidates, while he explained that the chief was trying to gain benefits for everyone. The swordswoman's face turned completely red at the situation. Right after, the disciple of the Yujin sect ran off, warning that it would not end there, while the young man wondered what he had done wrong. He then looked at the other participants, who were wounded and bleeding. A voice in the background commented that it had been many years since such an interesting freshman had appeared. Suddenly, the headmaster of Suwenshin Academy, Yu Changxing, appeared, praising that year's lively and vibrant evaluation. Thus, the students wondered if that was really a headmaster, commenting that he didn't look trustworthy with his wig falling off. Then TNG scolded them, revealing that this was the legendary Red Flame Shuar Yu Changxing. He went on to tell the story of how the leader had massacred countless demonic cultivators and dyed his hair with their blood. Even so, the other candidates did not seem very impressed with the tale. One of them then questioned why his red hair was fake if the legend was true. The headmaster turned to the boy and asked what his name was, and he replied that it was Wu Lingyan. From atop a roof, Yu observed the scene. Worried, the young girl wondered why the headmaster had appeared so suddenly and how she would fix the fact that Lingyan had offended him. With that, she contacted him mentally, and the boy heard her call. She then instructed him to put the wig back on the leader's head before he noticed. Instructor might try to apologize on behalf of the boy, begging for leniency from his superior. The headmaster, however, retorted, questioning the instructor's own lack of skill. Meanwhile, the wig continued to slip from the elder's head. In an instant, the young man prepared to act. With a quick movement, he leaped up and placed the wig back onto the headmaster's head. The elder was impressed with the speed of the move, which almost went unnoticed. Smiling, the cultivator said he had only picked up something the headmaster had dropped and that no thanks were necessary. Instructor might try to get Yu's attention to warn him. Suddenly, the headmaster appeared with several darts stuck in his head. From the roof, Yu shouted desperately, telling him to differentiate between the wig and hidden weapons. Instructor Mi grabbed the boy by the neck, accusing him of attacking the elder, but he apologized, saying he had made a mistake. The leader, however, questioned whether they really thought such small things could harm him. Instructor Mai pointed at the blood dripping down, but the superior insisted that it was part of the test. The boy seemed impressed, but Yu realized the headmaster was only pretending to be brave. Then the young man offered to remove the weapon stuck in his head. As soon as the dart was pulled out, a black liquid spurted from the wound. The leader then collapsed to the ground, revealing that his legs were hairy. Instructor Mai ran and caught him before he hit the floor. The other students commented that he seemed just like an arrogant old man and that he had hairy legs. Examiner Huang then announced that all the remaining students had passed the second phase and that the next test would be held the following day. As the instructors carried the headmaster toward the alchemy hall, the others only watched the scene. One of the candidates remarked that although they had passed the evaluation, something felt strange. Suddenly, one of them remembered something important as he found himself surrounded by puppets. Everyone shouted at once, asking Master Huang why he hadn't deactivated the mechanical puppets. From a distance, Instructor Mai observed the chaos in the courtyard, while Lingyan remained safe. Hidden, Instructor Chel Chan-Hu thought to himself that he had not expected the boy to hand himself over so easily. Later, the students lamented that they had almost been killed by projectiles during the test. Thus, the scene shifted to the student dormitories at night. There, Yu found him training and asked why he wasn't resting, but the boy said he needed to pass the test. She then agreed that the next evaluation was crucial for obtaining more training resources. Even so, the young girl reminded him that balancing work and rest was also important. With that, she offered to help him unlock his meridians, but her expression made him suspicious. The girl only praised him for being ambitious and moved closer to him. Suddenly, she tripped on a stone near the door. With a swift motion, the cultivator caught her and told her to be careful. To herself, Yu celebrated that her plan had worked perfectly. Outside, Baidi remained standing near a wall. With that, she promised herself that she would make Wu Lingyan pay for what happened. Suddenly, the noise startled her. Immediately, she turned toward the sound, which came from his room. Her expression changed as she tried to understand the scene. Through the window, the girl saw the silhouette of Wu Lingyan and wondered what he was doing there. Thus, she tried to convince herself it was a mistake, since the boy had barely even arrived at the academy. With that, she decided to calm down so she could observe the scene more clearly. Looking again, the silhouette, the window seemed to confirm her suspicions. In reality, he was only training with his jump rope, which fortunately his uncles had found. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu regretted spilling the red flower wine used to treat injuries. She then crouched down with a cloth to start cleaning the puddle on the floor. As she stepped on the liquid, the young girl slipped and suddenly fell. Outside, Baide prepared to break into the room, determined to save the girl. Suddenly, a frightening silhouette appeared in the window, making her scream in terror. She quickly covered her face, believing it was already too late to do anything. Inside the room, the cultivator asked Xiaoyu if she was all right, but she only said she had fallen. With that, she lamented that her clothes had been stained with the red liquid. The scene left him flustered, making him avert his eyes. He then offered to help her find clean clothes and turned toward the wardrobe. Suddenly, the door to the room was kicked open with great force. Sword in hand, Baidi called him a demonic murderer and ordered him to surrender. At that moment, the scene showed the young man handing the towels of Xiaoyu, who was kneeling on the floor. Upon entering, the girl accused him of defiling the body, while the other wondered how she'd become a corpse. The youth could not understand why he was being called a demonic murderer. He then questioned if she had discovered his identity, but the answer was denied immediately. Even with his attempt at explanation, Baidi refused to listen and prepared to strike. She quickly activated her sword technique, and an aura of energy formed around her. The young woman then launched her 10,000 swords attack. With no other option, he decided he would need to offend her in order to defend himself. With that, he moved at a high speed, dodging the blades of energy. The swiftness of his movement left him surprised for an instant. Baidi warned him not to think that was all she had. She then prepared her piercing celestial sword strike. A massive beam of energy was fired in his direction. To defend himself, he countered the attack with a direct punch. His opponent could not believe he had shattered her tiny sword using only his body. Suddenly, she felt a presence appear right behind her. In an instant, she was struck at the back of the neck with the palm strike meant to erase her memory. With that, she collapsed to the ground completely unconscious as her sword rolled aside. Sitting on the floor, the cultivator apologized, explaining that this was the only option to avoid revealing his identity. Thus, the technique consisted of infusing power into the palm and directing it to the opponent's brain. As a result, the strike left her completely stunned on the ground. Soon after, he said they needed to take her back quickly before anyone found them there. He then carried the girl on his shoulders out of the room. Under the moonlight, he ran across the rooftops of the academy with her. As he advanced, he searched for the right place where he should have left her. Suddenly, the swordswoman began to wake up, wondering what was wrong with her. Without hesitation, he struck her again with the same technique to erase her memory. With a sigh, he thought that he had merely been exposed. Even so, something continued to trouble him. As he carried her through the academy streets, he wondered where that woman actually lived. Because of that, the situation left him completely lost, not knowing what to do next. Hidden, Shirinjai observed the scene, trying to understand what kind of relationship existed between Shiflingen and Baidi. Although he pushed open the door of one of the rooms, he soon opened it fully. After that, the young man laid her down on the bed. Since the room looked unoccupied, he assumed she was staying there. But suddenly, the young woman began to wake up, questioning what was happening. However, without hesitation, he struck her again with the memory-erasing technique. As she fainted, the stranger apologized for not being able to reveal his identity. Thus, he began to worry whether repeated use of the technique might have scrambled her memories. Even though he felt guilty, he knew it was better than having his family exterminated. Looking around, he was surprised by the mess in the young woman's room. Soon after, he noticed the footprints he had left on the floor. Therefore, determined not to leave any trace, he grabbed and mopped to clean the place. In addition, while cleaning, he decided he might as well tidy up the mess in her room. But then the scene shifted to a gazebo in the middle of a forest at night. At that moment, a hooded figure ordered whoever was hiding there stop. As soon as young Xiao Chunho emerged, the stranger praised him for being so well hidden. Right after, the figure boasted that nothing could escape his eyes. With that, the young man explained that he needed his help to deal with a new student. The hooded man, however, questioned why he should help him. In return, the instructor promised his full support in the choice of the next family head. Soon after, the figure stood and asked for Tari's identity, and the request was answered, Wu Lingyan. Hearing the name, the man recalled the arrogant boy from the exam. Then the instructor proposed to rig the lottery so that he could kill the youth accidentally. The hooded one, however, agreed to the plan but reminded him not to forget his promise. As the figure turned to leave, young Master Xiao called him back. Shortly after, he asked for help with another matter. For in the water, a giant aquatic serpent had coiled around his leg, holding him fast. Desperate, he begged to be saved first, which left his ally incredulous at the situation. With no other choice, the man decided to intervene. With a swift movement, he drew his weapon and slashed the creature with an energy strike. Soon after, he ran and leaped, finishing the attack with a powerful slash. Thus, with the beast defeated, the hooded figure announced that it was over. But suddenly, Xiao Chunhu fell from the sky, screaming among the trees. In an instant, the man caught him in his arms before he hit the ground. At last, the instructor praised the strength of the Xiao family's genius, but the young man only asked him to get off. With that, the figure dropped him headfirst into the water and walked away. Soon after, the spirit of Master Dan appeared, and the hooded one warned that Wu Lingyan was not so simple. Then the master agreed, admitting that the power the boy had shown would be difficult even for him at his peak. Even so, the man boasted, claiming that no one in that world could defeat him. He then revealed himself to be a time traveler named Shio Hyuoho. For, in his original life, he was just an ordinary student on Blue Star. After a traffic accident, he ended up transmigrating into the cultivation world. Soon after, he became an apparently insignificant master of his Shao family. One day, while tending cattle, he stumbled and fell into Manga. At that instant, he found the ring that housed Master Dan, beginning his journey to power. With this protagonist's story, he felt confident that every opponent was nothing but a stepping stone on his path. Moreover, Kyo declared that even without resentment, Wu Lingen's destiny was to be defeated by him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the young man suddenly sneezed, not understanding why. After finishing his cleaning, he decided the room was tiddy enough and that it was time to leave. With that, he opened the wooden door. After saying his farewell, he left while Baidi continued sleeping. Standing before his own room, the traveler noticed something strange. As soon as he entered, he realized someone had been in his room. Soon after, he found Baidi lying unconscious in his bed. For a moment, he only stood there, watching the sleeping girl. But in an instant, he panicked upon realizing that a cultivator had broken into his room. As he approached the bed, Shou Humo-Wu watched Baidi turn over in her sleep. Soon, the young woman's fame as the goddess of a new generation came to his mind, and he admired her even while she was asleep. Then the young man scolded himself, reminding himself that this was not the time for distractions. With a new posture, he turned toward one of the pieces of furniture in the room. Thus, he began to analyze the situation, pondering why a girl would be tidying his room and lying in his bed. Therefore, the single conclusion emerged in his mind. She must certainly like him. The memory of comic books from his past life made him believe that as the protagonist, it was his destiny to have a heroine in love with him. As he looked at the sleeping girl, he questioned whether Baidi could be his destined heroine. Soon after, his expression changed as he noticed that despite everything, the girl still had not awakened. At that moment, Master Dan appeared and revealed that her consciousness was damaged, which was preventing her from waking. Thus, Shou Huo assumed that Baidi had spent so much energy cleaning his room that she fainted, leading Master Dan to scold him. Unbothered, the young man leaned over the bed, confident he could help using the first aid knowledge from his past life. He then positioned himself in front of the bed and prepared to begin the procedure. At that instant, the girl lying there let out a faint murmur. Slowly, her eyes opened and she questioned what was happening to her body. At that very moment, the young master leaned over her with his lips ready for a kiss. Suddenly, a loud crash made Wu Lingen turn back, startled by the noise coming from the room. Immediately after, Baidi kicked open the door as she left, warning him never to appear in front of her again. Sitting on the floor, Shou Huo wondered why he had been attacked if she had feelings for him, leading Master Dan to suggest he might be overthinking things. Thus, the young man concluded that the women of this world were naturally reserved and that a kiss had been far too direct. Master Dan then asked how he could be so sure that Baidi liked him and had not simply entered the wrong room by mistake. With a bruised face, the protagonist answered that the reason was simple. He was a natural-born protagonist. Outside, the young woman walked alone through the courtyard as she tried to understand how she had ended up in someone else's bed. With that, a memory surfaced in her mind, showing the moment she confronted Wu Lingen and heard the accusation that he was a demonic cultivator. Little by little, the memory became clearer, and she finally began to understand what had happened. In her recollection, she accused Wu Lingen of being a cultivator who used bodies to strengthen his cultivation. Therefore, Baidi realized that she had uncovered a huge secret, and that the person in the room was probably Wu Lingen's accomplice. With a determined smile, she swore that she would find proof that a thief had infiltrated Zhuanshan Academy. At that instant, her voice echoed through the night, shouting Wu Lingen's name as a promise of vengeance. The cry woke two students who recognized Baidi's voice and wondered what could have happened between her and Wu Lingen. The next day on the presentation stage, all the students were already gathered for the evaluation. While they waited, some began to complain that the evaluation had not yet started and that no instructor had appeared. Far away, Wu Lingen continued his intense training, determined to push himself even harder. As soon as Chu Xiaoyu tried to calm him about the test, he replied that he could not afford to relax. Amid the crowd, Baidi watched the scene and criticized Wu Lingen for still showing off. Other students noticed her reaction, remembering that Baidi had shouted Wu Lingen's name the night before and questioned what had happened. With a smile, Qianji approached and hinted that none of them knew the true story behind the event. Shortly after, he began to explain that the relationship between the two was deeper, preparing to tell what he'd seen the previous night. Before he could continue, however, a blade was pressed against his neck, cutting off the gossip. Immediately after, Shou Huo appeared from behind and threatened him not to slander Baidi, making the boy agree at once. With the warning given, he walked away, leaving Qianji collapsed on the ground. The crowd commented on the sudden reaction, assuming he was just a great admirer of Baidi. Ignoring the comments, Shou Huo reinforced himself that she was his destined heroine, while Master Dan only watched his confidence. Suddenly, an authoritative shout demanding silence echoed throughout the presentation area. With Mai Rensing's arrival, all the students, including Wu Lingen, turned toward the stage. Soon after, the instructors Meng Yanli, Yu Tangsing, and Huang Luhong stepped onto the stage, and the third evaluation was announced. Meng Yanli explained that this round would be a real combat test, where performance would determine to which class each student would be assigned. After that, he informed them that Headmaster Yu Tansing would personally evaluate the entire process. Next to Wu Lingen, Chu Shan and Xiao Yu commented that the headmaster seemed to have changed his wig, but she was quickly scolded to stay quiet. The headmaster seemed to notice the whisper, but only confirmed that he understood the instructions. Then one of the instructors pressed a button and announced that the third round would be a combat test in which the candidates would draw their numbers. With that, the students lined up in front of the penguin-shaped machine to get their numbers. Wu Lingen watched the others approach while waiting for his turn in line. When his moment came, he placed his hand inside the machine's opening to retrieve a number. Seeing a perfect chance, Mei Yamli took the opportunity to launch a piece of metal with paper toward the boy. Not understanding what had just happened, he looked down at his hand. In his palm, the paper with the number 38 was torn and stuck to a sharp piece of metal. From a distance, Mei Yamli observed the scene with a satisfied smile. Shortly after, he turned to Xiao Huaho and confirmed that he had managed to make the target pick the manipulated number. The instructor boasted of his skill, but was interrupted by a bloody cough, and the hooded youth advised him to stop talking. Then Xiao Huawo showed his own number, 36, and questioned whether the plan had failed, since he was not in the same group as the boy. With an air of superiority, the hooded one replied that he had not understood the true strategy. Mai Yamle explained that Wu Lingen seemed to have some cultivation techniques, so he preferred to put someone else to test his abilities first. At that moment, the young man noticed a great shadow approaching and turned to face his opponent. The giant man with the number 37 appeared before him and advised him to give up, calling him weak. In the crowd, Tianji and other students were surprised by Lingen's first opponent, commenting that he did not seem to be someone easy to face. Sim Qianjai revealed that the adversary was Wang Tishu, the notorious assassin known for never leaving witnesses. Standing before Wu Lingden, the man revealed that he had observed his 2 previous evaluations. With disdain, he labeled him as trash, relying only on a bit of natural strength. Wang Tishu then boasted of being at the peak of key refinement and slapped the boy across the face, provoking Tushan Shouyi's fury. While trying to calm his friend, Wu Lingden sidily faced his opponent. Seeing the reaction, Wang Tishu mocked him, asking if he wanted to start fighting right there. Amid the tension, the crowd stirred, expecting the newcomer to finally react to the provocation. To everyone's surprise, he simply apologized, stating that his spiritual root was too poor, while those around him fell to the ground in disbelief. Tushan Yu scolded him for being so polite to an opponent, but he simply replied that what was said was true. Thus, Wang Tizhu stepped closer and ordered him to kneel if he wanted his life spared. Wu Lingen stared at him in silence for a moment before he began to speak. At that instant, he declared that even if weak, he had reasons that compelled him to keep fighting. The assassin then warned him to prepare for defeat in the arena and turned to leave. As he walked away, Tushan Yu praised Wu Lingen's attitude, though he looked back at her confused. Far away, Wang Tishu pressed Mei Yamli for the deal to enter the superior class if he killed the boy. Smiling, the assassin walked away, promising to make the newcomer understand his true power. Mei Yamli only commented that he hoped Wu Lingden would not be eliminated in the very first round. Soon after, Mai Rinsing announced the end of the lottery and summoned the freshmen of the first match to the arena. The first to be announced was number 1, Bai Di, to the delight of the audience. Next, number 2, Zhang Me, entered the arena and immediately proposed dual cultivation, irritating the crowd. As everyone threw objects at him, Zhang Me dodged confidently, warning that attacks from behind did not work on him. Moments later, he was struck squarely on the head, completely shattering his composure. The fruit was deflected but ended up hitting instructor Mai Rensing, leaving him covered in it, while Zhang Ma apologized. From a distance, Xiao Huovo and Mei Yanli simply watched the chaos unfold in the arena. With a serious look, a hooded youth declared he would remember Zhang Me's name for coveting the woman who was his. Mei Yanli questioned how he had gotten close to her so quickly, to which the mysterious young man replied that it was the effect of his protagonist's aura. To end the commotion, Headmaster Yu Tangson coughed and ordered the match to begin immediately. Thus, the instructor released Zhang Ma, still covered in the remains of food from the crowd. Standing on the opposite side of the arena, Bai Di only commented that this was exactly what she wanted. Therefore, Zhang Ma declared that he would show his true abilities to finally win her over. Then he prepared to execute one of his most powerful techniques. Using the shadow clone, he created multiple copies of himself that spread throughout the arena. Xinjai explained that the technique created clones with swift movements, but Wu Lingen did not seem impressed. Surrounding his opponent, the clones taunted her, saying she would never defeat him without finding a real body. Bai Di only observed in silence for a moment, and suddenly all the clones vanished, leaving only Zhongna's legs in the middle of the arena. With a quick move, the young woman landed a precise kick on her opponent, who asked if she thought he was an idiot. At that instant, he writhed in pain and accused her of using a despicable and lowly strike. Smiling, the young man began to reveal that not everything was as it seemed. Soon after, Jongmin displayed a protective metal plate, explaining that since he had harassed others before, he was already prepared for that kind of attack. Seeing that his kindness had been rejected, he decided he would no longer be merciful and began gathering energy in his hands. As soon as the sphere of energy was launched toward Bai Di, he had to dodge her rapid clone attacks. In the crowd, Wu Lingyan questioned why he had not fired the Kai sphere directly to strike. With that change, I explained that a cultivator's level determined the distance and power of QA, and that merely condensing it was already an impressive feat. Hearing the explanation, Lingyan reflected on how strong his father and Tushan Xiaoyu really were. In the arena, Baidi managed to dodge all the blows and asked if that was all he had to show. With a wave of his hand, Zhao Mei declared that this farce should end. Warning her not to underestimate him, he prepared to redirect the attack against her. Quickly, he leaped back to gain some distance. With a victorious smile, he boasted of his control of the Kai sphere. At last, he proclaimed that his ability surpassed her imagination and launched the attack directly. With her agility, she managed to dodge his attack. The cultivator composed herself and began to evade the energy spheres with swift movements. The instructors commented on the human sex's unique ability to manipulate spiritual energy released outside the body. One of the students explained to Wu Lingyan that the technique used threads of energy to control larger attacks, leaving him impressed. Back in the arena, Baidi faced the approaching energy sphere with a determined gaze. Then she drew her sword, irritated at being forced to use it against such a despicable opponent. With a single motion, she declared it a disgrace and cut the energy sphere in half. The impact of the slash surged forward in a straight line and struck her opponent directly. Suddenly, Jongma's protective metal plate shattered, leaving him completely shocked. Moments later, he felt his knees, impressed that she had destroyed his attack, and even more convinced that she was the right woman for him. With the impact, the young man fainted and collapsed to the arena floor, defeated. Wu Lingyan observed the scene, confused about how the energy was being controlled. Instructor Mai Ringsing then announced that Zhongma had lost his ability to fight and declared Beiji the winner. As the crowd celebrated the victory of Yujin Peak, the swordswoman remained still at the center of the arena. Beside Tushan Xiaoyu, the young man reflected on whether this was what battles between cultivators were truly like. Suddenly, a girl appeared holding an enormous chicken leg. Hearing the noise, Lingyan turned to see what had happened. The pink-haired girl then recognized Baidi, expressing her admiration for the #1 cultivator of the new generation. Soon after, she commented that she also wished to be that strong one day. The newcomer approached Wu Lingyan, who was surprised by her height. Without meaning to, she bumped into Tushan Xiaoyu, who was shocked by the impact. At that instant, the fox assumed that this was the kind of thing Lingyan liked. The pink-haired girl noticed the boy's gaze and deduced that he was craving food. Seeing everyone's reaction, she offered the meat and asked if he wasn't desiring something else. Though scolding himself, Wu Lingyan admitted he was hungry from training and accepted the piece of meat. Tushan Xiaoyu panicked, not knowing what to do as she realized he really did want the food. Thus, she could not believe that a stranger had understood Lingyan's desires better than she had. Meanwhile, the instructor ordered that Zhongma be removed from the arena so the next candidates could prepare. With his mouth full, Wu Lingyan asked the name of the girl who had fed him. Smiling, she introduced herself as Nron Chan, the student who had entered the academy the previous year. Tushan Xiaoyu questioned her about being a senior, but the young woman replied it wasn't exactly like that while hiding behind the meat. Soon after, Moron Chen explained that she had actually repeated due to low grades and had come to take the placement exam. While eating, she revealed that she could be expelled if her results were poor, making Wu Lingyan notice that she didn't seem very nervous about it. Shortly after, Tianji approached to share information they might not know. He revealed that the senior Moron came from a famous family of alchemists revered across the 9 provinces. Consequently, he explained that she had developed a technique that turned alchemical ingredients into food without losing their effects. Hearing this, Wu Lingyan realized that the meat he had just eaten was actually a spiritual pill. At that moment, he felt embarrassed for having consumed something so valuable. But Moron Chan reassured him. She explained that she simply could not stand to see someone hungry. Her kindness left Wu Lingyan and Tushan Xiaoyu speechless. Moved, he called her an angel, while the fox at his side grumbled that it wasn't that big of a deal. Suddenly, a crowd of admirers ran past them, making way for the young master. At that moment, Baidi approached for the focused gaze, ignoring the commotion around her. Without hesitation, Moron Chan ran to her and with admiration asked for an autograph. While she waited eagerly, Baidi only stared at her coldly, leaving Wu Lingyan and his guardian in silence. The #1 refused the request but advised her to be careful when choosing her friends. She then turned to Wu Lingyan and promised she would uncover the truth about what he had done the night before. As she walked away, the crowd began to speculate whether what Tianjai had said about the relationship was true. Because of this, Moron Chen asked if he was really close to Baidi, but the boy replied that he only knew her. Ignoring the answer, she held his hand and asked him to introduce them as she wanted to become as strong as the senior. Suddenly, instructor Mag Ringsing's voice echoed, calling Marong Chan's name twice. From his stage, he scolded her for not listening and told her to hurry to the match. As she ran, the girl asked Wu Lingen not to forget to deliver her message, and he agreed to try. With that, Tu Shanqiu Yu advised him to stay away from her, but he replied that he thought she was a good person. He then reflected that someone who cared so much about a stranger could not be a bad person. On stage, the instructor reminded her that this was her last chance to retake the exam. The girl then took a deep breath to prepare for the fight. With a determined look, she told herself she needed to win at least one battle in order to stay. Then the thought of having to return to a dark place terrified her. The instructor then announced the next match and called number 36 to step onto the stage. In response to the call, a hooded figure began walking toward the presentation platform. Marong Chan watched her opponent approach, and her expression shifted to complete surprise. As he lowered the hood, Cho Huovo revealed his face with a smile and announced that he was coming. With both sides in position, the instructor prepared to start the match. Meanwhile, the two opponents stared at each other with serious expressions, ready for battle. In the upper seats, Yu Tangxing and Huan Luham questioned how the young woman of the Marong family ended up in a freshman test. Soon, the stern young man explained that she had failed almost all evaluations, even the alchemy test, and would probably have to repeat the year. With that, both concluded that if the Sina did not win any matches, they might have to send her back to her family. Then Qianji commented to Wu Lingen that although she could prepare powerful medicinal foods, the girl had no combat skills. In the center of the arena, the instructor once again positioned himself to give the signal. Then with a backward leap, he announced that the match had begun. With clenched fists, the Marong Harris told herself she could not afford to lose no matter what. On the other hand, her opponent commented that he had not expected to fight such a cute girl. Right after, the young man imagined he would win easily with his vast experience. Even more confident, he fantasized that after the fight, both she and Baidi would be impressed by his strength and join his harem. At that moment, the girl charged with a shout and threw a straight punch. Her fist struck the young man's face squarely, catching him off guard. With the impact, he was thrown backward, while his opponent gave him no respite, moving in for another attack. Then Wu Lingen questioned why that idiot was just standing there smiling, while Tu Shanqiu Yu suggested he must be thinking of something happy. Inside his mind, Master Dan scolded him for daydreaming, but the fighter insisted he would win because he was the protagonist. Back in the fight, Sina Marong charged and threw another straight punch at her rival's face. At the last second, he managed to grab her fist, halting the attack. With the blow blocked, the young man warned that the same move would not work on him a second time. Right after, he threw her over his shoulder, launching her to the other side of the arena. The young woman landed hard on the ground as her opponent began to rise for his next move. Even so, with her guard raised, she prepared to charge again. With that, the young man used his speed, claiming that ordinary hand-to-hand combat would never reach him. In the audience, Wu Lingen shouted words of encouragement to the senior, to Tu Shanqiu Yu's dismay. Panting, the young woman seemed to be running out of energy to continue the fight. Even so, refusing to lose, she pulled up two enormous meat legs, determined not to give up. To her rival's surprise, the girl began devouring the food right there in the middle of the arena. Then Qianjai explained that the fighter was using spiritual food to increase her combat power, making Wu Lingen realize it wasn't hunger. Soon after, he revealed that the food was actually real pills, and that eating so much at once could have serious consequences. Suddenly, the accumulated energy exploded in a bright light that blinded the young man for an instant. Immediately after, the Marong Harris appeared with her clothes torn, but surrounded by an aura of power. In the audience, Wu Lingen and Tu Shanqiu Yu wondered if what they saw was an explosion of her body or just of her clothes. With a nosebleed, the young man let out a mocking laugh. He then declared that even with a last-minute effort, the senior would not be able to defeat him, only be scolded to wipe his nose first. Ignoring the remark, the girl replied that she had to try, even if it seemed impossible. With a shout, she charged at her opponent, breaking the arena floor as she advanced. The attack surged toward the fighter, who prepared for the impact. While Master Dan warned him that her strength had surpassed the key refinement stage, he replied that he already knew. Then the combatant declared that the fight was not over yet and prepared to strike again. With that, the young man announced that he would also begin fighting seriously. Her fist then clashed against the sword he used to defend himself. The strength of the impact surprised him, leaving him stunned for a moment. Then the punch shattered his guard and struck him directly. Wu Lingen was impressed by the senior's power, but Tu Shanqiu Yu noticed that she was only forcing her body to its limit. Soon after, the observer explained that with that level of intensity, the young woman would not last more than a few minutes. In the middle of the ruined arena, the Harris breathed heavily, already exhausted from the battle. With sweat dripping down her face, she wondered aloud if she had managed to win. On the observation platform, the instructor asked if the young man had been beaten to death, but headmaster Yu Tangxing reassured him. With a serious gaze, the headmaster affirmed that the battle was not over yet. Amid the smoke, the silhouette of a sword appeared. and the opponent was surprised that he had been pushed to his limit by a local girl. With a battered face, he stood up and decided it was time to show his true strength. With his sword on his shoulder, the young man declared that he needed to show his true strength. Then with his wounded face, he warned that this time he would not hold back. With that, the fighter charged forward swiftly, promising not to go easy on his opponent. The Maroon Harris was startled by his speed as he moved in circles around her. As the fighter leaped above the arena, Wu Lingen shouted for her to look up, making her react. Soon, an attack from above struck the ground with force, shattering the arena floor. Just in time, the girl managed to leap backward and avoid the blow. With the blue energy lotus blooming in his hand, the rival declared that she would not be able to escape. Then he launched the technique Blue Heart Fire Lotus directly at the young woman. The energy erupted into blue flames, engulfing the combatant and destroying part of the arena. In the stands, Wu Lingen and Tushan Shou Yu watched the scene in silence, unable to react. Amid the flames, the girl screamed as her clothes were burned away by the energy. At once, Tushan Shou Yu covered Wu Lingen's eyes so he would not see, while the audience reacted to the strike. The instructors recognized the blue lotus flame and concluded that the match already seemed decided. Standing in the smoke, the young man glared at his opponent and asked what was wrong. With a smile, the fighter mocked whether she still refused to surrender, while the girl stared back at him with determination. Without replying, the Harris pulled out a bottle and drank its contents in one go. At once, a fiery aura exploded around her as the bottle shattered on the ground. The unexpected reaction left the young man completely shocked. Then the combatant charged forward of the shout, releasing a wave of energy that sent debris flying. The young woman unleashed a flurry of rapid punches against his sword, forcing him to struggle to block them. Watching the scene, one of the instructors questioned whether the girl had gone mad. Moments later, Wu Lingen wondered if her aura had intensified due to a breakthrough, but Tushan Shou Yu denied the possibility. The fox then explained that the senior was pushing her limits with even more pills. With that, Tushan Shou Yu concluded that at that moment, the girl was literally burning her own life force. Even injured, the fighter continued her assault, shouting over and over that she could not lose. Seeing her stubbornness, the young man warned that he would no longer hold back. With a new move, he trapped her inside a giant blue lotus, which exploded and sent her flying. As soon as she landed, the fighter prepared to finish the battle. Seeing the danger, instructor Matt Rinsing shouted for the match to be stopped immediately. Ignoring the warning, the young man unleashed his Blue Lotus whirlwind attack upon the Harris. The instructor shouted again to stop the match, declaring it already over. With a look of panic, May Rinsing realized it was too late to intervene. Lying on the ground, the girl wondered if it truly was the end for her. Soon, a memory surfaced, showing a relative destroying her food and scolding her for disgracing the family with useless recipes. In her recollection, the young woman asked why the Marone family could not free themselves from the shackles of alchemy, since her food had the same effect as pills. The only answer she received was a slap, as she was told that cooking was a disgrace to the family name. With that, her relatives decided to send her to Western Academy, planning to arrange a marriage for her if she failed. Then one of the family members expelled her, calling her useless and a disgrace to the clan. The memory ended with the girl collapsed on the ground, crying as she clenched her fists. With a determined gaze, she swore to prove that the food she made was just as good as any pill. Back in the present, as energy enveloped her, the fighter wondered if anything could truly change. At the last second, the energy attack was halted before striking her. Suddenly, Wu Lingen appeared in front of the girl, blocking the final blow. With a serious expression, he stared at the rival and declared that he could not allow her to be harmed because Seymour Muron was a good person. When asked if he was trying to stop him, the young man vowed that he would. The intent was to hurt her. With a smile, the fighter called him brave for daring to challenge him. Suddenly, instructor Mai Rinsing leaped between the two and ordered everyone to leave the arena, declaring the match over. Then the examiner pointed to the wounded youth and declared him the winner of the battle. With the spin of his weapon, the young man prepared to leave the arena. Before leaving, he warned that the other must win his next match or else he would not have the chance to face him personally. Not understanding the threat, Wu Lingen replied that he would do his best to pass the first round. With that, Tushan Shou Yu scolded him for being so calm and to face him a clear threat, but he did not understand what happened. At that moment, Harris began coughing, so weakened from the fight. As Wu Lingen supported her and asked if she was alright, the young woman thanked him for saving her. With a sad expression, she lamented that she had not been able to win a single round even after giving her all. Then the girl began crying in frustration. Suddenly, she vomited and Wu Lingen, alarmed, asked Tushan Shou Yu to quickly fetch some healing pills. As he held her in his arms, he tried to comfort her, but the fighter insisted that she was fine. Soon after, she explained that she had simply eaten too much, making Tushan Shou Yu complain about the disgusting sight. With kindness, Wu Lingen offered to help Senior Marone down to rest, and she thanked him. Before they could leave, instructor Mai Rinsing interrupted and questioned where the boy thought he was going. Right after, he informed him that it was now his turn to fight in the arena. With that, the examiner revealed that his opponent was Wang Tishu, who glared at him with a scornful smile. Wu Lingen then asked Tushan Shou Yu to escort the Harris off stage, and the young woman wished him good luck. As she supported her, The fox grumbled in her thoughts about having to care for that foolish woman. Immediately, Mei Rensing ordered both sides to prepare for combat. In the arena, Wu Lingyan faced his opponent, who waited on the other side. With mockery, Wang Tishu declared that it seemed he had given up his last chance to survive. In response, the boy only stared back in silence, showing no reaction. With a leap, the instructor stepped back and officially announced the start of the match. Striking the ground with his weapon, the rival declared that if that was the case, he would have to kill him. In the audience, everyone worried about the fighter's power, but Tushan Xiaoyu reassured them, stating they did not know Lingyan's strength. With complete confidence, she declared that no attack would be able to bring him down. In the arena, Wang Tishu only observed his enemy, readying himself for the final strike. Not understanding his opponent's posture, Wu Lingyan wondered what kind of move it was. Suddenly, Wang Tishu shouted and released a dark aura that tore his clothes from top to bottom. Then a bright light exploded in front of Wu Lingyan, who observed the scene silently. His opponent appeared wearing pink undergarments and performed his Iron Pillar dance. The visual impact made the young man bleed instantly from the nose. In the stands, several spectators also collapsed backward, bleeding as well. Disgusted, Qianjai explained that the move caused such nausea that people could not remain standing. Instructor Huang Luhong commented that using such a visually aggressive strike was a disgrace to the academy. With that, Headmaster Yu Shangson corrected him, affirming that the visual effect was only a distraction. He then asked if he had not noticed that something was wrong with everyone in the stands. Kneeling and clutching his stomach, Wu Lingyan felt nauseous and could barely stay upright. Seizing the chance, Wang Tishu leaped with his weapon and shouted for him to die. The pillar struck the ground with force, raising a cloud of dust and debris. Even weakened, Wu Lingyan managed to leap away and dodge the strike. With a growl, Wang Tishu prepared to attack again, given no chance to escape. With a spinning move, the rival executed his Iron Pillar whirlwind dance around Wu Lingyan. In the audience, the spectators could no longer bear the scene, covering their eyes and vomiting from nausea. Beside Tushan Xiaoyu, Harris suddenly seemed to understand what was happening. She then explained that the disgusting behavior was only a distraction for the true trick, the toxic smoke released by the Iron Pillar. With a victorious smile, Wang Tishu boasted that the entire arena was already filled with his poisonous fumes. Thus, feeling the effects of the poison, the young man covered his mouth, struggling to resist. Meanwhile, Tushan Xiaoyu accused him of being despicable for secretly using poison. In response, the assassin declared that in a life-and-death stage, all means were fair. From afar, Mei Yemli watched with satisfaction, praising the performance of the hired fighter. At his side, Shou Fimowo commented that he almost fell for the trick, but the instructor corrected him, saying he indeed had. Soon after, Wang Tishu advanced for the shout and demanded that his opponent die in agony. However, paralyzed by the poison, the boy wondered what was happening, as his body would not move and his head throbbed with pain. Gradually, his expression shifted to panic as he realized the severity of the situation. Seeing his rival struggle, the assassin mocked him for still trying to fight without even using 10% of his strength. He then approached for the final blow, promising to end his suffering quickly. With that, the pillar struck the boy's face directly, forcing him back with injuries, while the enemy watched him with disdain. Right after, he launched into the frenzied Iron Pillar dance, landing a brutal sequence of strikes. The barrage of blows pounded the body without pause, and the boy could only endure the impacts. In the stands, Marong Chan shouted for him to stop fighting, while Tianji worried about the imminent defeat. Desperate, the fox pleaded with the instructors to stop the match immediately. However, Mei Rensing replied that he could not stop the fight, since the boy still had the ability to fight back. Despite the order, the relentless strikes continued to batter his body. From afar, Baidi observed and questioned whether this was all the strength he had, disappointed by what she saw. With his opponent already weakened, Wang Tishu prepared for the final strike. Soon after, the pillar hit its target directly, spraying blood across the arena. The scene shocked the entire audience, and even the assassin himself was surprised by the result. Even so, the young man managed to catch the Iron Pillar with his hands, halting the attack. Not understanding, the enemy questioned why he was still resisting with the little strength he had left. Wounded, the boy explained that because he had so little energy, he needed to put everything he had into his single punch. With a contemptuous smile, the rival asked if he truly believed such a weak punch could hurt him. In that instant, the fist struck Wang Tishu's side. Immediately, his expression shifted to shock as he felt the impact. Suddenly, a wave of energy erupted from within his body, and he screamed as the damage spread. The force of the punch rippled through the arena in rings of energy, expanding from the point of impact. The explosion was so strong it could be seen from the stands, leaving all the spectators stunned. With his body battered, Wang Tishu glared at the young fighter, unable to believe what had happened. At last, with a final gasp, the assassin collapsed onto the arena floor, completely defeated. Standing, covered in wounds, Wu Lingyan simply declared that he had won the fight. Lying on the ground, Wang Tishu muttered that defeat was impossible. Then he questioned how his opponent had managed to defeat him so easily. even while poisoned. Wu Lingyan only turned away without giving a direct answer. With a serious gaze, the young man revealed that this was the power he possessed even in a weakened state. Not understanding, the defeated man called him a monster, shocked by the revelation. Soon, instructor narration announced that the winner of the round was Wu Lingyan. With a discreet smile, the young man celebrated his victory. After that, the instructors decided to disperse the poisonous mist left in the arena. With this, Huang Luhong released a device that flew over the battlefield. The artifact spread an antidote that fell like rain, healing all those affected by the poison. As he felt the rain, Wu Lingyan realized his strength had been restored. At that moment, Marone Chan ran toward him and congratulated him on his victory. With a hug, she praised him for being even more powerful than she had imagined. The scene stirred Tu Shouyu's fury, who advanced toward the two with a threatening look. While the young man was being embraced, the fox came closer and closer, ready to intervene. With a shout, Tu Shouyuyu placed herself between them and warned Marone Chan not to get so close to Lingyan. The girl tried to justify herself, but the fox accused her of being interested in his body. From afar, Shouyuyu complained that it should be him surrounded by beautiful girls, and Mei Yamli questioned why he thought that way. Soon, the instructor admitted that the winner's strength had indeed surpassed his expectations. Then Mei Yamli asked Shouyuyu if he was certain he could handle that opponent. With an aura of confidence, the young man replied that the word lose did not exist in his dictionary. At that moment, Xiao Chunhu appeared from behind and fined him 500 spirit stones for setting fire to the academy. Annoyed, the young man questioned the penalty, but Mei Yanli restrained him so he would not act rashly. In a whisper, he warned that this man was the academy's disciplinarian and also the headmaster's uncle. Xiao Chunhuo only observed the scene with a serious and intimidating expression. With that, Mei Yanli pointed out that the headmaster was watching the commotion from afar. Reluctantly, Shouyuyu agreed to pay the fine and handed over a bag of spirit stones. Immediately, he received another punishment, this time of 1,000 stones, for maliciously attacking an academy staff member. While Mei Yamli tried to calm him down, the young man shouted in rage but ended up agreeing to pay. As soon as the two left, he knelt on the ground and swore he would make the headmaster and old man pay double for what they had done. Falling to the ground with his anger boiling, Shouyuyu cast one last glance toward Wu Lingyan, as if blaming him for his frustrations as well. Suddenly, Wu Lingyan shivered, feeling a cold chill run down his spine. He muttered under his breath that the air had grown strange, leaving Tu Shouyuyu intrigued. Soon after, Tianji congratulated him for defeating a 5-star assassin, but Wu Lingyan replied seriously that the fight had not been as simple as it looked. With a mischievous smile, the informant revealed that the battle had earned him valuable information about wine tissue, which he could sell for a good price on the black market. At that moment, instructor Mai Rinsen called Tianji, reminding him that his participation in the first round was still pending. Surprised, the boy realized it was his turn to fight. With firm and cautious steps, he climbed onto the arena to face his opponent. On the other side, Yu Jaxu waited silently, a young man with red hair and a calm gaze. In the upper seats, Headmaster Yu Chanson confirmed to Huang Luhong that the boy was indeed his useless grandson. He then explained that since the youth refused to learn the family's techniques, he had no choice but to send him to the academy. In the stands, a revelation stirred murmurs among the students, who commented on the competitor's identity. While Wu Lingyan's group showed concern, Qianjie remained calm and declared that his leader was underestimating him. With his book in hand, he stated that even without great combat skill, intelligence could compensate for the difference in strength. Facing Yu Jaxu, he revealed that he already possessed much information about him, since he was the headmaster's grandson. With confidence, he declared that by using the secret techniques of the Tianji sect, you would never fall without a fight. As soon as the instructor announced the start of the match, the two locked eyes intensely. Soon, Qianji activated his divine technique, and a celestial eye opened on his forehead. Tu Shouyuyu, surprised, explained that it was a secret ability of a Tianji sect, mastered by only a few capable of seeing the future. Observing Qianji's stance, she remarked that he had indeed saved a trump card for this moment. Meanwhile, Yu Jaxi prepared himself, curious to see the power of that technique. Focused, Qianji began the Tianji deduction. The technique revealed that there was an 85% chance that Yu Jaxu would open the fight with an earth-based attack. Immediately after, Yu Jaxu used the Earth and Rock Surge, forcing Qianji to quickly leap aside to dodge. From afar, Yu Jaxu watched as the boy balanced himself atop one of the rocks. With a confident smile, Qianji declared that he had already calculated that attack and thus would not be hit. Impressed with his precision, Wu Lingyan commented on the boy's movements, and Tu Shouyuyu confirmed it was the effect of the technique. She explained that the celestial eye allowed Tianji to access the divine thoughts of the Tianji ancestor as if he were possessed. At that instant, a powerful aura appeared behind him, revealing the imposing image of an ancestral spirit. As the young warrior prepared for her attack, a red aura began to surround her hands. With that, Qianji's technique revealed that the chance of an earth-based attack combined with martial arts was 90%. Immediately after, the girl charged forward at high speed, using the shining trail technique to close in on her opponent. Without panicking, the boy simply raised his hand to the exact position indicated by his premonition. The moment the enemy's fist approached, he managed to block the strike with precision. Even with the block, the force of the impact landed squarely on his face. With the blow, the young visionary was thrown backward and fell unconscious onto the arena floor. While his opponent looked on, the boy remained on the ground, completely defeated. From the stands, Wu Lingen and Tu Shan Xiaoyu shouted the student's name, shocked by the result. Even injured, the boy was already back on his feet, scribbling in his notebook about the need to calculate the difference in strength next time. Right after finishing his notes, he fainted again, leaving Wu Lingen even more worried. At that moment, instructor Mei Rinsing congratulated the young master on his victory, while Wu Lingen wondered if his companion would be alright. In the upper seats, the headmaster remarked on the fighter's progress but lamented that he still refused to use the Yu family techniques. After the fight, the victor looked toward the instructors in the sky and then turned to leave the arena. With that, instructor Mei Rinsing authorized him to step down from the stage. Soon after, Wu Lingen carried his colleague on his back, praising him for the strength and his third eye technique. With his face swollen, the boy replied that he didn't need to learn such things, but Wu Lingen regretted having little talent for it. At that moment, instructor Mei Rinsing announced that the second round would be organized randomly and that the students called should step into the arena. In the upper seats, the headmaster, instructor Tuan Lu Hong, questioned the decision to select opponents at random. Elsewhere, Xiao Huobo worried he might not get to face Wu Lingen, but Mei Yamli reassured him. With a smile, the instructor revealed that Wu Lingen had offended more people than just the two of them. Immediately after, Mei Rinsing crushed a piece of paper in his hand and announced that the first match had been decided. Standing before the lottery machine, he opened the slips to reveal the competitors' names. Thus, the fight would be between Wu Lingen and Xiao Huobo, who smiled confidently. However, Tu Shan Xiaoyu and Marong Chan questioned how this was possible if the selection was random, but Wu Lingen said he hadn't heard anything about it. At once, the instructor defended himself, asking how they could possibly manipulate the results to target new disciples. Soon after, Xiao Huowu stepped forward, claiming he believed instructor Mei would show no favoritism. Seeing his rival's hesitation, Tu Shan Xiaoyu accused him of being arrogant and afraid to fight. With a serious look, Wu Lingen interrupted her, declaring that enough had been said. He then stated that to enter a better class, he could not back down even a little. While Marong Chan and Tu Shan Xiaoyu admired their companion's resolute stance, the visionary took the chance to jot down the two girls' interests in his notes. With both opponents in position, the arena fell silent, awaiting the start of the combat. With a smile, Xiao Huowo remarked that he hadn't expected his rival to actually have the courage to step up and fight. He then charged forward, determined to settle both old and new grudges at once, striking the arena floor with his weapon. Moments later, Tu Shan Xiaoyu complained about the surprise attack, but instructor Mei Rinsing pretended he had already announced the start of the match. Irritated, the fox concluded that everyone in the academy seemed to be targeting her brother. In the arena, the two fighters exchanged a series of high-speed blows. With a swift move, the aggressor created an afterimage to confuse his opponent. As soon as the spectator shouted a warning, Wu Lingen was already turning toward the strike from behind. He then delivered a quick punch and Xiao Huoho admitted that the boy's speed was indeed impressive. Immediately afterward, a massive explosion of blue energy spread across the arena. Without retreating, the challenger used his own arm to block the advancing blue flames. With this, the opponent declared that he had already deciphered his fighting style and would not allow him to get close. Feeling the heat of the energy, Wu Lingen blew on his own hand to cool it. Suddenly, the boy's expression changed as he realized something important. With a shout, Xiao Huoho invoked the 3,000 Fire Dragons technique, summoning two massive creatures of blue flames. With that, the high temperature of the flames forced his opponent to retreat as he realized he could not block the strike with his body. From afar, Mei Yamli observed the satisfaction, encouraging the attack to corner his rival. Meanwhile, Baidi watched the fight, waiting for Wu Lingen to finally reveal his demonic techniques. Cornered at the edge of the arena, he saw his enemy preparing a new strike to finish him once and for all. Moments later, the technique Twin Dragons entering the sea surged toward Wu Lingen, who braced himself for the imminent impact. With a shout, Wu Lingen declared that he had no choice but to use his full strength. Meanwhile, Marong Chan and Qian Ji watched with excitement, eager to see which move he would use. With his hands positioned, the young man prepared to execute one of his immortal techniques. Then he shouted chest exercise, unleashing a wave of energy and repelled the blue flames. Shocked, Xiao Huovo protested that this was nowhere near an immortal technique, while the challenger boasted that he had developed it from his experience with workouts. With that, the opponent admitted he had some skill, but warned that his tricks did not end there. Soon after, the energy of the dragons dispersed, exploding into small flames around the young fighter. In an instant, the flames transformed into dozens of small lotus flowers of fire. With the arena covered in flames, Xiao Huowu challenged him to try catching them with his hands. Faced with a new threat, Wu Lingen decided he needed to use an even stronger immortal technique. Immediately, he he performed the immortal technique of side-by-side jumping. At that moment, Jiang, who was watching from afar, questioned whether he had learned his technique, but was scolded by a fellow student. With rapid movements, the young man created multiple afterimages of himself that moved across the arena. Then knowing Xiao Huo, who realized his rival was using the airflow from his movements to disperse the flames. With his opponent still surrounded by elemental fire energy, he prepared for a finishing strike. Thus, Xiao Huo invoked the prison of flaming rock confinement, encircling the challenger with fire and stone. Meanwhile, Chen Jie and Marong Chan questioned how he could use earth techniques, and the informant noted the absence of elemental fluctuations. Soon after, Mei Yamli bragged about Xiao Huo's 5-element switching technique, prompting the boy to complain that he was just making up names. With a smile, the opponent reflected on how the natives of this world did not understand the principles of the 5 elements. In the upper seats, Headmaster Yu Tansing ordered Huang Luhong to record the boy's technique. However, the instructor recalled the high cost of spiritual rock crystals, causing the headmaster to choke in surprise. Back in the arena, Xiao Huo boasted that with knowledge of the world's principles, his techniques had infinite variations. With a new shout, he prepared to unleash his finishing strike. Then the young man executed a piercing rock explosion, causing the walls of fire and stone to collapse upon his opponent. Soon after, the rocks and flames came crashing down on Wu Lingdan, who was trapped at the center of the explosion. Thus, Qianji and Marong Chan shouted his name, worried about the result of the attack, while the headmaster lamented the loss of his spirit stones. Huang Luhong tried to get his attention. With a chicken leg in her hand, Marong Chan prepared to rush in to save Wu Lingdan, refusing to stand idle. However, Tushen Shoui stopped her, insisting she should not make her brother's problems worse. With total confidence, the fox reassured her, guaranteeing that such a small technique was no problem for him. With an air of superiority, Xiao Huo declared that a native of this world could never compare to him, the son of destiny. Suddenly, the ground of the arena began to tremble and crack beneath his feet, leaving him stunned by what was happening. In the stands, everyone wondered what was going on, questioning whether it was an earthquake. With a confident smile, Chusheng Xiaoyu simply declared that her brother Lingyan was truly invincible. Then the ground split upward, revealing an intense yellow energy. Soon, Wu Lingyan emerged from the rubble, performing the immortal technique of super speed bench press. The sight left Xiao Huo completely shocked, wondering how such a thing was possible. With that, Tushan and Xiaoyu explained that those stone slabs were nothing compared to her brother's usual training. Amid the debris, the challenger remarked that the weight was still too light for him. Irritated, Xiao Huo refused to believe that someone from this world could humiliate him. He then declared that, as the chosen one, there was no way he could lose to a mere nobody. With that, the young man used the metal bar in the earth's momentum technique to strengthen his weapon. Soon after, he prepared to unleash the thunder strike against his opponent. In the upper seats, the headmaster lamented that rage had clouded his grandson's judgment, making him forget his opponent's greatest ability. Back in the arena, Wu Lingyan prepared to use another of his immortal techniques. As the attack descended, the boy performed the body rotation exercise. With a spinning kick, he struck his opponent's weapon directly, shattering it into pieces. The impact of the blow was reflected in Xiao Huo's eyes as he watched his weapon destroyed. With his rival disarmed, Wu Lingyan turned and declared that he had lost. In the stands, Tushan Xiaoyu and Marong Chan shared his strength and victory. From afar, Mei Yamli grew irritated, questioning how this fighter could lose to a boy without cultivation. With victory secured, the challenger began to walk away, leaving his enemy behind. Falling on the ground, Xiao Huo screamed, refusing to accept defeat and ordering him to stay where he was. He then rose to his feet and begged Master Dan to lend him strength, determined not to lose that way. Thus, Master Dan appeared and questioned the request, refusing to risk his soul for a mere admission test. Faced with the refusal, the young Xiao Huo argued that his coming to this world would have no meaning if he failed in such a basic challenge. Because of this, he remembered his past life as an ordinary student who was ridiculed for reading comics on his way to school. In his memories, he wondered why he was the target of laughter and wished he had the power of a protagonist to take revenge. Suddenly, the memory of a warning shout pulled him out of his thoughts. Soon after, the image of a desperate driver emerged as a truck rushed toward him. At that moment, he recalled the instant he realized he had been transported into the world of a comic. In this new beginning, he became a young master rejected, constantly humiliated by others who threw mud at him. Still, he looked at a ring on his finger, determined never again to be treated as useless. Shortly afterward, he remembered that inside the ring lived the spirit of a powerful cultivator called Master Dan. With the help of his mentor, he quickly advanced in his cultivation and reached the stage of key refinement. As soon as he gained strength, he made all who had bullied him pay the price. His remarkable performance made him stand out among the members of his generation and earned him the respect of his family. Afterward, he revealed that his goal was to become the patriarch to prove he was no longer weak. Back in the present, he declared that because he possessed a special ability, he could not be defeated by a background character. The master sighed, grumbled, but finally agreed to help the boy. Right after, he used a burst of energy to transfer the psi he had accumulated, warning that you would provide support only for a brief period. The young man smiled, absorbing the luminous energy and assuring his ally that there was no need to worry. From afar, Huang Luhong commented to Dean Yu Tangxing that the Qi emanating from him seemed abnormal. The older cultivator explained that although his strength was limited, the most important thing was being able to invoke the flames of the 5 elements. Then the boy invoked the flame of the water element. Soon after, he unleashed an explosive wave of water against Wu Lingen. The opponent was struck head-on, trapped inside a water prison. Desperate, he began to drown and struggle within the aquatic bubble. In the audience, everyone was shocked, realizing that the boy's cultivation base had surged to the golden core stage. Mei Yamli immediately accused the competitor of cheating, but Tu Shangqiu scolded him, demanding that he present some proof. The challenger then mocked his rival, claiming that even his superhuman strength would be weakened by the water. Next, he generated the metal element. Smiling, he invoked the technique Black Iron Shard Spikes to pierce the opponent. However, Wu Lingen quickly used a swimming technique to dodge the rain of iron spikes. As soon as he noticed the escape, Shou Huovu shouted that the rival would not get away and invoked the wood element. Right after, shadowy vines emerged in the water and bound Wu Lingen, immobilizing his movements. While the challenger commented on the strength of the branches, the young man affirmed that this was the effect of the golden core level technique. Unexpectedly, he bit his own finger hard, making blood drip. At that moment, Master Dan questioned him for using his vital blood, but the boy replied that he only had enough energy for one more strike and needed to guarantee victory. With that, he explained the cycle generation of the 5 elements, preparing to combine all the powers. Little by little, all the energy concentrated in his hand, forming an intense light. Next, he fired the attack Celestial Tyrannical Slash of Primordial Sky at the imprisoned opponent. Immediately, the audience panicked upon realizing the battle exceeded the level of key refinement and shouted for help. At the last moment, Dean Yu Tangxing leaped toward the arena to intervene. Quickly, he released a red energy barrier to suppress the shockwave of the attack. While the barrier contained the explosion, a student commented that enrolling there had been the right decision despite the Dean's exposed prosthetic leg. Behind his attack, the young man shouted that he would no longer be ignored and that he needed to win at any cost. The energy beam finally struck the water prison head-on, completely engulfing Wu Lingen's silhouette. Even inside the bubble, the opponent apologized and clenched his fist tightly, causing the vines to break apart. The boy then observed his enemy's reaction. Wu Lingen declared that he had a greater reason not to lose. He then prepared to use an immortal art technique called Common Direct Punch. The blow collided directly with the energy beam, making the challenger's cloak fly backward from the impact. Not understanding the force of that strike, Shou Huohu observed the clash. Soon, a massive explosion formed at the collision point, as the young man questioned how that was possible. Moments later, the light of the explosion completely engulfed the arena. Protected by the barrier, the students commented that the shockwave would have been fatal without the dean's help. In that tense atmosphere, Yu Tangxing observed the smoke and wondered how a blow without spiritual energy could be so powerful. The dust began to settle, revealing Wu Lingen's silhouette still standing. Falling to his knees, the transmigrator heard Master Dan admit that they had been defeated. Even with the master asking him to stop, the boy refused to accept it, declaring that someone from another world could not possibly lose. The opponent then approached, apologized, and raised 2 fingers toward his rival. With a swift movement, he struck with his fingers, slamming the challenger into the arena floor. Collapsed in a pit, Shou Huowu remained completely knocked out. Afterward, Wu Lingen cast a glance at his defeated rival and revealed that, in truth, he too was a transmigrator. From afar, Mei Yamli grew irritated, questioning the true strength of the victor. With the victory made official, Wu Lingen was acclaimed by the crowd as the announcer declared his name. As soon as he stepped down from the arena, Tu Shangqiu and Murong Chan embraced him, praising his strength and the impressive punch. A little embarrassed by the attention, the young man commented that the effort of the fight had left him greatly drained of energy. Murong Chan quickly reassured him, saying she had plenty of food for him to recover. At that moment, she pulled out a giant piece of meat from inside her clothes to offer to the fighter. Tu Shangqiu immediately scolded her, asking her not to keep her storage pouch in such a strange place. In response, Murong Chan said that Spot had the most space, leaving the fox girl flustered. While the young cultivator ate, the fox observed her rival and decided she would learn to cook so she would no longer give her any advantage. Soon after, Mei Yamli interrupted the group, asking if they weren't going to step down so the next competitors could fight. As he walked away, the victor had a sudden idea and stopped midway. Next, he ran back toward Shou Huohu, who was still lying on the ground. The young man then crouched down and offered a piece of meat to his rival, asking if he too would like to eat some. The defeated opponent only stared at the offered meat without saying a single word. With a quick gesture, Shou Huohu slapped the food away and shouted that he needed no one's pity. As the defeated one left, Tu Shangqiu promised to teach him a lesson, but Wu Lingen stopped her, saying he too would be in a bad mood if he had lost. Right after, Murong Chan questioned his generous attitude, to which he explained that he held no grudge since they were compatriots. With that, the two girls looked at him without understanding the meaning of that word. From afar, Mei Yanli observed the young man walking away and mocked him for calling himself the chosen of the heavens. He then decided he would need to think of another way to deal with Wu Lingen. Suddenly, a punishment talisman was slapped onto his face, cutting off his thoughts. As soon as the talisman hit him, Xiao Chunhu appeared and fined him 100 spirit stones for spitting on the ground. The young man recognized the instructor and, having no way to resist, agreed to pay a fine immediately. Handing over the stones, he swore to himself that he would make Wu Lingen pay for that humiliation. At that very instant, the victor sneezed unexpectedly. Mo Rong Chan quickly offered him some ginger soup, but he refused, saying that probably someone was just thinking about him. Shortly after, the voice called his name, making him turn to see Baidi standing atop the arena. He recognized her the moment he laid eyes on her. Nearby, Mei Yamli commented that it was not yet that student's turn to fight. Ignoring the instructor, Baidi addressed the young man, acknowledging his strength but questioning if it was right to ignore others in that way. From afar, Xiao Huowo remarked that the girl had offended two people as soon as she arrived, while walking away, still surprised that he had been defeated so easily. Soon after, Baidi accused him, declaring that if no one could expose his demonic cultivation techniques, she herself would. Not understanding the accusation, Wu Lingen asked what the young woman was talking about. Next, she asked Mai Yamli to advance her match, and he agreed, explaining that it would be necessary to draw an opponent. The instructor only smiled when the student refused to draw. With sword in hand, Baidi challenged all advanced level students to step onto the arena and face her, with the exception of Wu Lingen. In the audience, a disciple asked if she thought herself invincible for having superior cultivation, to which another replied that, in truth, that was already enough. Watching the scene, Xiao Huowu commented to Master Dan that this was the woman of his interest, but the spirit retorted that she seemed to have eyes only for Wu Lingen. The elder then reminded his disciple that Wu Lingen himself was also a transmigrator, advising him to stop dreaming of being the son of the heavens and to focus on his training. The young man, however, replied that having a rival with the same origin only confirmed his status as the chosen, which left the master irritated. With a determined look, he promised himself that he would overcome every difficulty and crush his opponents. Faced with the situation, Huang Lohong asked the dean if this was not against the rules, but Yu Tangsing replied that it was good to see some spirit in the youth. The dean then asked Baidi if she was certain of her decision, and the girl confirmed, saying she did not want to waste time. With that, Yu Tangsing declared that he was eager to see the skills of the new generation of cultivators. Without further delay, Mei Yamli shouted, announcing that the battle had begun. Outraged by the challenge, several students attacked at once, warning her not to be arrogant. Unfazed, the swordswoman called their attacks insignificant tricks and initiated her technique. Right after, she invoked the dance of the 100 sentinel swords, creating a barrier of blades around her. One of the challengers shouted that he would break the defense with brute force and charged against the circle of swords. With that, he raised his weapon and unleashed the strike, frenzied blade of purple thunder. The young woman merely observed him and asked if he truly wished to compete in a contest of strength. The attack collided with the barrier in a flash of light. Right after, it was stopped by the cultivator with her large sword. Next, a great explosion followed, hurling all the students away with the shockwave. The challenger who had led the attack was flung out of the arena with the impact. Moments later, he crashed hard onto the ground before the other spectators. In the audience, Zhang commented that she was indeed the greatest genius of the generation, having defeated the young master of the savage blade sect with a single strike. Shinji added that the swordsmanship of Yujin Peak was truly impressive, while the victor observed the fallen opponents. Soon after, Shinji turned to Zhang Mei and asked why he had not stepped into the arena since he too had been promoted. With a smile, the young master replied that he would not lose to a mere subordinate, leaving Shinji puzzled by such pride. Suddenly, Baidi noticed movement coming from the dust. At once, one of the students who had resisted the previous attack rushed forward to strike her from behind. With a swift spin, the swordswoman disarmed him and hurled him into the air with the force of her blade. Seeing the opportunity, the other challengers, still standing, decided to attack all at once. Thus, they advanced together, forcing her to defend herself while she complained that this would never end. Then the cultivator forwardly sealed her hands, declaring that she would control the sword with her kai. With that, the warrior levitated above her blade in a pillar of light, but the audience wondered if she had already reached the golden core stage. At that moment, Zhang Mei explained that this was not a flying technique, but rather a movement from Yujin Peak to carry people with the sword. Soon, rings of energy began forming around her body in the air. Amid the glow, one of the defeated students shouted, complaining that the technique was obscuring their vision at a crucial moment. Right after, the challenger raised her weapon and invoked the technique Ascension of 10,000 Swords. Thus, she unleashed a rain of energy blades that descended upon all the opponents in the arena. In the next instant, all the remaining challengers collapsed to the ground, defeated and immobilized by the swords. Meanwhile, Chu Shang Xiaoyu admitted that the swordswoman was skilled, but still inferior to Wu Lingyan. Moments later, one of the fallen students tried to speak, but only spat blood. The wounded one questioned why he had been hit, while another suggested the young warrior had done it on purpose. From afar, a masked man observed the cultivator land in the arena. The stranger then muttered to himself that she had grown even stronger. Soon, the announcer officially declared Bai Di the victor of a challenge. As soon as the fight ended, the winner turned and fixed her gaze on Wu Lingyan. Then she challenged him, declaring that it was time to settle their unfinished business. Without hesitation, the young man walked toward her and asked if she didn't need to rest, but received the reply that it was unnecessary. She then stated that defeating his opponents had cost her almost no energy. Faced with the scene, Dean Yu Tansen remarked to Huang Lohong that he would let the two strongest students of that class compete. Right after, Huang Lohong released several monitoring drones to record the battle. The small machines then hovered over defeated competitors in the arena. Among them, one of the drones grabbed the student by the hair to remove him, while the wounded boy cried out in pain. Not knowing how to react, Wu Lingyan tried to start a conversation. However, Bai Di cut him off and vowed she would force him to use his full power to expose his identity as a demonic cultivator. Laughing at the situation, the challenger denied the accusation and explained that he did not even possess cultivation, while bringing a blade closer to his own neck. Next, Wu Lingyan asked why she insisted on killing him, even if he were a demonic cultivator. In response, the swordswoman said he knew nothing of what she had endured, as she recalled a bloody scene from her past. Realizing the young woman had grown even angrier, Wu Lingyan braced himself for the imminent attack. Soon the cultivator invoked her technique and released a column of sword energy that shot toward the heavens. Faced with it, he felt the power of spiritual ki and concluded that he could not take the strike head-on. Thus, using immortal art, the challenger leaped at the exact moment the energy struck the ground. The force of the impact propelled him even higher, away from the explosion. While dodging, the young man continued rising into the air. In the audience, Xiaomi questioned how he could fly with nothing but the strength of his legs, while Tianjie praised him. In the air, Wu Lingyan remarked that he had finally managed to escape the attack. Suddenly, the swordswoman appeared, flying on her blade, and challenged him to escape her next strike. Soon after, she prepared her sword again, gathering energy along the blade. Then she unleashed a massive vertical slash of energy toward her opponent. The attack struck the arena floor with destructive force, raising dust and debris. As the strike ended, the warrior landed amidst the smoke, fragments falling all around her. At that moment, the pavilion master questioned whether the fight was too dangerous, but the dean considered the test interesting. With that, the cultivator readied herself to face the immortal art coming her way. Suddenly, Wu Lingyan appeared and blocked the sword energy with his bare hands. Moron Chan was stunned at the sight, while Tu Shangshouyu declared that his strength was unimaginable. Even so, the challenger pressed forward, determined to force him to reveal his true trump cards. Still, she invoked a technique that created a vortex of swords in the sky above his head. Next, the young woman unleashed a rain of spiritual blades at her rival. Falling on the ground, the young man simply opened his mouth and began absorbing all the energy of the attack. The swords then clashed against his body, which absorbed the entire impact. Thus, the sight revealed that Wu Lingyan had stopped all the blades to the complete shock of his opponent. From afar, the instructor watched closely and commented how familiar it seemed to him. Then the cultivator gathered the energy of the swords into a sphere and held it in his hands. Calmly, he hurled the sphere back at his challenger and said she was not his opponent. The sphere landed on the ground as the warrior glared at him furiously. With a determined expression, the swordswoman declared that she would never yield to a demonic cultivator. At that moment, the story rewound 10 years into the past to Yujin Peak, where a child's voice called out for her mother. At that time, Lo Baidi, only 5 years old, rejoiced for she managed to sense spiritual energy for the first time. Soon after, the mother embraced little Baidi, praising her for managing to guide Kimai into her body at only 5 years old. With that, Hu Yu declared with conviction that she was certain her daughter would become the greatest of masters and transform Yujin Peak into a better place. The girl then promised she would try her best, while her mother praised her for being so obedient. Suddenly, a male voice interrupted the conversation, telling her not to raise the child in such a naive way. At that instant, Bai Jianren, the girl's father, criticized her for being proud of merely sensing Kai, stating that she would never be able to lead the sect that way. Shuayu immediately scolded him, reminding him of his own failures in childhood, but he retorted that talent without a strong heart was useless. Ignoring her husband, the mother called her daughter to celebrate her birthday with a special meal. As they walked together, Wu Yu explained that the father was right and that being a woman, she would have to become even stronger to lead the sect. With those words of encouragement, the little girl immediately sat down to meditate, promising to train hard until she reached the key refinement stage. From afar, the father watched silently and said he would return later to check on her progress. As soon as he turned away, he hid in a corner. Concealed, the man began to cry, questioning if he had been too harsh with his words. Unexpectedly, his wife appeared and startled him, saying she had hurt him because he was making too much noise. She then teased him for acting so severe when he hated to see his daughter suffer, but he replied that he needed to be a strict father and leader to guide her. Yu asked that his dignity meant crying hidden in a corner, leaving him speechless. Bai Junren then reflected that the world of cultivation was dangerous, and that a low suffering now was better than losing her life in the future. With that, he declared with conviction that his daughter was, without doubt, the most exceptional genius of the younger generation. That night, the mother watched the little girl meditate, thinking she would need to bring more clothes for her because of the wind. Meanwhile, Yujin Peak remained silent under the moonlight. Alone in the garden, little Bai Di continued practicing her cultivation. While meditating, she thought she was very close to finally reaching the key refinement stage. Determined, she focused even more, resolved to grow stronger so that her parents would stop fighting. Suddenly, a shadow with a demonic aura appeared behind her without her noticing. Right after, her mother approached for the tray of snacks, asking her not to train so late. At that moment, the shadow transformed into a large demonic figure of the red aura, while Huayu screamed her daughter's name. At the same time, another presence revealed itself. A demon with sword and shield appeared on a nearby rooftop. The girl's mother then identified the figure as a demonic cultivator. Startled, Huayu dropped the tray of food on the ground. Despite the chaos, little Bai Di remained focused on her cultivation, repeating to herself that she was almost there. High above, a violent clash of red and blue energy erupted. At the same time, the girl approached the key refinement stage. With a final cry, the little girl finally advanced in her cultivation. Next, she turned and asked her mother how she had discovered her breakthroughs so quickly. There's no time to celebrate. Huayu embraced her and shouted for her to flee from the demonic cultivator looming above them. She then pushed the girl away and ordered her to find her father, taking the enemy's strike in her place. Dust rose with the impact of the attack. Moments later, Bai Junren arrived with the guards and asked what happened. His eyes widened immediately. Before him, the demon had its sword embedded in his wife's chest as she shielded their daughter with her own body. With a furious roar, the patriarch invoked a chain technique to bind the intruder. Chains of energy wrapped around the enemy's body, immobilizing him. While the adversary was restrained, Junren leaped into the air, preparing a final strike with his sword. With all his strength, he delivered a devastating slash down upon the demon. After defeating a creature, the father rushed to support Huayu and tried to reassure her, saying everything was fine. The daughter then cried out that her mother was bleeding too much, but he only replied that he already knew. With her last breath, the wound apologized. As she died, she lamented not having taken better care of her daughter, leaving little Bai Di stained with blood. With a final desperate call, Huayu's hand fell lifeless to the ground. The little girl then tried to wake her, begging her to open her eyes. Next, the father turned at his daughter and reminded her that this was her birthday. He held her tightly. Weeping, Bai Junren handed her a sword and told her to protect herself since her mother was no longer there. Back in the present, the cultivator declared she would never surrender to a demonic cultivator, while Wu Lingen insisted he was not one of them. With tears in her eyes, Bai Di swore to use her sword to exterminate all demons, while the young man was shocked, unable to understand why. The young woman then stated she knew ordinary strikes would not work against him, but that he should not underestimate her. Right after, she explained that although her father had forbidden her from using that technique before reaching the golden core, she had no other choice against such a powerful enemy. She then raised her sword and recited the same incantation her father had used in the past. The dean and Huang Lohong watched closely. On the pavilion, master identified it as Yujin Peak's mortal strike against demons. Yu Tangxing looked at the scene with concern. However, upon executing the technique, the young woman spat blood. Wu Lingen grew worried about her condition and tried to offer help. Suddenly, the same chains of energy her father had once used appeared and bound the young man's body. With her opponent immobilized, the cultivator prepared to deliver her extermination technique. Immediately after, she unleashed the final sword strike, shouting the name of the technique with all her might. The attack struck the arena floor with devastating impact, raising a massive cloud of dust and debris. In the audience, Marong Chen watched with concern, but Tu Shan and Xiaoyu reassured her, saying he probably wouldn't mind it. Amid the dust, the girl told herself that this strike, created to kill demons, would surely be more than enough to defeat him. However, from within the smoke, an unexpected voice echoed. The competitor turned in surprise, not understanding what was happening. Soon, Wu Lingen emerged from the dust completely unscathed and asked if she had already finished her attack, leaving her utterly speechless. But Bai Di then asked what kind of demonic cultivator he was to have suffered no damage. However, in response, Wu Lingen simply clarified that he was not a demonic cultivator. Still completely ignoring the answer, the girl began to wonder if there was something wrong with her own technique. Soon after, she started questioning whether the failure existed because she had not yet reached the golden core stage. With that, the competitor concluded that if she had more strength, she would easily defeat him. Meanwhile, from the audience, Dean Yu Tangxing watched the scene with an intrigued expression. Back in the arena, the challenger released his aura and declared that he would break through his limits to annihilate all demons. At that moment, the dean appeared behind her with a grim look. Immediately after, he placed his hand on her shoulder and announced that the competition was over. At that moment, the crowd began to speculate whether the fight had been interrupted out of fear that she might actually kill Wu Lingen. However, a masked man stated that it was already too late to stop anything. As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed and fired an energy projectile toward the arena. The attack pierced through the battlefield and struck Baidi on the back of the neck. Beside her, the dean sensed a strange aura forming around the competitor's body. Yu Tangsing then turned with a worried expression as he realized something was wrong. Immediately, a shadow with an aura emerged from the ground, taking the form of a creature. Soon after, the demon let out a roar that echoed throughout the arena. Faced with the scene, the dean reacted with an irritated expression. As the creature grew, he wondered how a demonic cultivator had managed to infiltrate the event. With that, he ordered the instructors to protect the students while he dealt with the threat himself. After confirming his command, Baidi fell to her knees on the ground, not understanding what was happening. At that moment, the demonic creature turned and charged for one of the students. Seeing the scene, the competitor relived the memory of a demon attacking her family in the past. Soon after, the monster leaped to strike, while the dean rushed to intercept it. Even wanting to fight, the girl realized her body was completely paralyzed. To protect her, Yu Tangsing stepped in front and blocked the demon's blow. Meanwhile, from the audience, the masked man commented that the situation was not chaotic enough yet. Next, he gave the order for his followers to begin acting. At once, several shadowy creatures appeared all across the arena. Thus, examiner Huang Luhong realized there was more than one demonic cultivator present. In turn, instructor Mei Yamini offered to hold back the creatures, telling Xiao Chunhu would take the students to a safe place. With a confident smile, he declared that the demons could not harm him because of his sacred body. As soon as the creatures attacked him, they were all repelled by a barrier of energy surrounding his body. At that moment, from the stands, the students commented that despite appearances, the academy's instructors were truly reliable. Finally, Chu Xiao and Xiao Yu watched the battle with a curious expression on her face. After the attack, Mei Yamli remained standing without a single scratch, to everyone's surprise. Meanwhile, Dean Yu Tangsing prepared to shield the competitor from a larger creature. Soon, the demon struck him with a powerful punch that was blocked at the last second. With glowing eyes, he activated one of his special combat techniques. Next, the dean fired a barrage of energy from the skies that struck all the demons at once. Thus, the students watched the explosion while one of them remarked on the master's impressive skill. Right after the strike, however, Yu Tansing showed great physical strain. At the same time, Baidi recovered and prepared to attack the creature approaching from behind. The demon, however, charged at high speed and struck before she could react. At the moment of impact, the girl turned with a look of surprise on her face. Unexpectedly, Wu Lingen appeared and blocked the attack with only one hand, saying that girls should not be bullied. Surprised, she asked why she was being saved after everything she had done. With that, the young man asked if the creature was her pet, making her even angrier. The young woman then explained that even though she treated him as a demon, he still helped her. With a smile, Wu Lingen replied that what mattered was kindness in one's heart, a lesson he had learned from his father. Right after, he stated that he considered her a good person, and therefore he could not allow her to be defeated. Next, Baidi warned him about two demons charging from behind. Without turning, he readied one of his techniques. With a swift spin, he executed a strike that unleashed a wave of energy. The impact of the technique completely disintegrated the two creatures instantly. From afar, the demon remarked if this boy was interesting for being able to defeat such a threat. Then Yu Tangsing released his aura and prepared to eliminate the remaining demons. The master then unleashed a rain of energy projectiles that struck the entire arena. The larger demonic creature, however, began to rise again from the rubble. Because of its roar, both of them stood still for a moment. At that instant, Willingham realized the creature was transforming and prepared to act. With a quick movement, he used a technique to intercept the sword strike. Thus, he managed to stop the blade with his bare hands, while the monster roared. The girl, however, declared that she also needed to fight and ready her weapon again. Soon after, she broke free and rushed forward alone to strike the demonic creature. With a precise blow, the competitor managed to hit the monster's arm directly. Next, Baidi looked up, celebrating the success of her strike. While the monster remained standing, Wu Lingen remarked that she truly was a good person. The creature's body then began dissolving into a liquid that spread across the ground. Seeing the scene, the young woman stood in the middle of the substance, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, Baidi collapsed to her knees as she realized the monster was poisonous, leaving Wu Lingen on high alert. While holding the sword, Wu Lingen noticed that the poisonous mist was far stronger than before. Suddenly, the blade was pulled back. Right after, the creature lunged forward to crush them, while Baidi shouted for him to be careful. Even trying to move, the young man realized his body was completely paralyzed by the poison. With that, the girl jumped in front of him and used her own sword to block the strike. As she tried to resist, she admitted that she couldn't hold on for much longer. In a final effort, Wu Lingen grabbed her and managed to escape the attack. The creature's strike then slammed into the ground with force, raising a cloud of dust. Seeing him unharmed, the competitor asked why the poison wasn't affecting him, but he couldn't answer. With that, she suggested that perhaps she had antibodies from a previous encounter. The young man then asked if she had faced a monster like that before, but he was interrupted. Even though she wasn't affected by the poison, the girl admitted that she wasn't sure if she could defeat that demon. Upon hearing the word, Wu Lingen remembered his father and thought that demonic cultivators didn't look like that. Unexpectedly, the monster began undergoing a new transformation. The creature then let out a deafening roar that echoed throughout the arena. As it roared, Baby was thrown back by the force of the impact. Falling to the ground, the young man urged her to use her special strike against the monster. The competitor, however, revealed that her hands were trembling and no longer obeyed her. Suddenly, the mysterious hooded man appeared with a smile on his face. With an air of superiority, he declared that this was the perfect moment to save the day. Beside him, Master Dan advised him to be cautious, but he boasted that the plot favored him. Next, Sho Hyuho turned to Baidi and told her to just sit back and watch his show. At the monster's roar, the young woman prepared to fight even without strength. The newcomer then clasped his hands together and began focusing his energy. Soon he materialized a massive sword in his hands, preparing for the attack. With the weapon in hand, the hooded man leaped toward the monster and strike. The blow cut through the air and hit the creature's side with great impact. From afar, Wu Lingen warned him about the poison released from the monster's arm. With a smile, he replied that he already knew that. Next, Sho Hyuho activated a technique that cloaked his body in flames. The technique transformed into a fiery dragon that charged at the demonic creature. With that, the clash of their strikes generated an explosion that lit up the entire arena. Soon after, he retreated into the air and prepared to deliver the finishing blow. The hooded man then raised his weapon and attacked with a vertical slash. Unexpectedly, the monster managed to block the blade with its own arm, leaving him stunned. The creature then shattered the energy sword and flung him away with the impact. Wounded, he refused to retreat, declaring that as the chosen one, he would fight to the end. In response, the demon launched several shadowy projectiles at him. From afar, Baidi watched the scene completely frozen. Soon, the girl recognized the technique as belonging to Yujin Peak and began to question the monster's identity. The creature then roared and charged at high speed. Seeing the danger, Wu Lingen leaped in front of her and shot at her with his own body, being pierced in the back. While holding her, he said that this was to repay the favor from before. Suddenly, Dean Yu Tangsing appeared, cloaked in a fiery aura, shouting at the monster for harming his students. Next, he manifested a gigantic form of energy and declared that the creature would die. The lesser demonic creatures rushed to attack the master's manifestation of energy. Completely surrounded, Yu Tangsen cursed that group of demonic cultivators. From afar, the masked man commented that the real show could not be interrupted yet. While holding him, Baidi asked how she could cure him of the poison, but he said he was already out of strength. Hearing this, Tianjia remembered that the only way to neutralize the poison was with antibodies. With that, the girl raised her sword and declared she would use her own blood to save him. Suddenly, a shadow darted toward them at high speed. The monster then leaped into the air, ready to crush them both with a single blow. Realizing she wouldn't have time to cut her wrist, the competitor looked at Wu Lingen. Without hesitation, she held his face and kissed him in front of the entire arena. The kiss continued as debris from a previous attack fell around them. Completely shocked, Sho Hyuho fell to his knees, unable to believe the scene he was witnessing. The crowd erupted in an uproar, while one of the students remarked that he had already suspected their relationship. Muron Chan placed a hand over her chest, while Tu Sham Yu screamed furiously for her to let him go. In the next instant, the creature's attack struck the ground, but the two had already vanished. As soon as the kiss ended, Wu Lingen activated one of his techniques with his hand glowing. Right after, he leaped into the air carrying the girl and prepared a deadly punch against the monster. The strike hit the creature from below, generating a devastating impact. After the blow, a trickle of blood ran from the corner of his mouth. Finally, he adjusted her in his arms and declared that his strength had been restored. While holding her, Baidi looked at him with a flushed face, not knowing what to think. However, with a confident smile, the young man looked back at her, and she realized that he had an attractive appearance. Soon after, Wu Lingen asked why her face was red, and the young woman replied that it was because of his injuries. Thus, upon seeing the scene, Dean Yu Tangsing seemed relieved that nothing serious had happened. Then he turned toward the demons and unleashed a massive fire attack to make them pay. Meanwhile, the masked man observed the rain of energy projectiles approaching. But with his swift movement, he used an energy technique to shield himself from the strike. Back on the ground, Yu Tangsing pointed in his direction and identified him as the true culprit. Immediately after, the dean ordered that he die on the spot. Thus, the hand of his manifested energy advanced to crush him once and for all. Because of this, the blow struck the ground and caused a massive explosion in the area. After the impact, Yu Tangsing's face showed surprise. For in the middle of the crater, he found a substitution dough and realized the trick. Without understanding the situation, the dean wondered what the true objective of those demons was. Soon after, the scene shifted to the front of the Academy's library pavilion. At that moment, portals of dark energy began to open on the pavilion's walls. Inside, the masked man commented that the heroes were fools for thinking he would attack from the front. With that, he summoned several arachnid-like creatures from an energy sphere in his hand. Next, the invader declared that he only needed to find a certain item to complete his plan. Thus, the creatures scattered across the shelves until one of them found what it sought. Soon one of the arachnids brought a book and placed it at his feet. Then the masked man picked up the item and mocked the academy's lack of security. With the book in hand, he lifted his gaze forward with a victorious expression. Suddenly, a voice declared that the library was a restricted area with a heavy fine for trespassers. Seeing the caretaker, the invader mocked his decline in power, but he replied that it was none of his concern. Thus, the guardian demanded that he restore the place and pay the fine immediately. With a defiant smile, the masked man asked what would happen if he refused. At that moment, the caretaker warned him not to say he had been told and lunged forward to strike with his broom. In the next instant, however, the guardian's body was pierced by a counterattack. From the impact, he was hurled out of the building with tremendous force. Meanwhile, from the main arena, Yu Tangsing saw the explosion and realized something had happened in the library pavilion. With that, he ordered the other instructors to protect the students, as he would check the situation himself. Immediately after, a figure soared through the air at high speed toward the pavilion. Watching the scene, Chushan Xiaoyu remarked that the world seemed about to enter an era of chaos. Back inside the library, the caretaker used his long beard to strike at the masked man from a distance. However, the invader mocked him for causing even more destruction than himself despite being the guardian. Without a scratch, the man reappeared and added a repair fee to the invader's fine. Soon after, the masked man's arm detached and flowed through a dark energy portal carrying the book. With his body regenerating, he complained that the old man remained irrational even after so many years. For his part, the guardian simply observed him with a stern expression without retreating. Then he declared that there was no need to be reasonable with demons and charged forward to attack. Thus, the caretaker struck with his broom, but it was blocked by a barrier of dark energy. Even with the block, he kept up the pressure and managed to shatter the opponent's defense. Right after, a different blow appeared in the guardian's eye as he prepared for the next move. With a swift spin, the masked man struck directly. The caretaker, however, managed to hold it back with the broom's handle and neutralized the attack. With that, the force of the impact generated a wave of energy that destroyed part of the pavilion. Facing the guardian, the invader declared that the power he had accumulated over the years was beyond imagination. Then he recalled the time he was nearly killed in the past at his peak. In his memory, the red-bearded man appeared with a sword, facing him after his defeat. The masked man revealed that although he had lost the fight, he managed to steal half of the secret manual. At that moment, the image of the old guardian appeared holding the book with his sword in hand. Back in the present, he boasted that he had finally recovered the manual and questioned the opponent's silence. However, the guardian remained silent, his face covered in shadow. Unexpectedly, he simply added another fine for destroying the academy's facilities. Irritated, the invader transformed his arm into a claw and leaped to settle accounts once and for all. The strike did not hit because the guardian managed to dodge just in time. However, the arm was already coming toward him, leaving him startled. With that, he declared he would have to use his weapon once more and drew a blade from within the broom. Immediately, the guardian counterattacked with a slash for his sword. The clash between the two combatants generated an explosion of energy that spread across the entire library. Without understanding, the masked man watched his arm of dark energy begin to dissolve. Before him, the caretaker raised his flaming sword and declared that his remaining blade of fire had been unsheathed. Surprised, the masked man recognized the weapon as he was surrounded by the guardian's aura. Right after, he remembered how that very same sword had been destroyed in the past and mocked him for keeping a broken weapon. In response, the red-bearded man asked if he wanted to find out whether the blade was truly useless. Immediately, the caretaker challenged him to test it and dashed forward at high speed to strike. The first slash grazed the invader's face, which he barely managed to dodge in time. Right after, the sword came down and struck him with a devastating vertical blow. The masked man's body was then split in half in an instant. After watching him fall to the ground, the guardian declared that it should finally be over. Unexpectedly, a strange mass began to emerge from the wound in his body. At that moment, the caretaker observed the scene with a look of surprise on his face. Suddenly, the invader's body began to rise again, shrouded in a dark aura. The mask then transformed into a new creature with a monstrous appearance. With his body half regenerated, he remarked that the old guardian was no easy opponent. Faced with the transformation, the caretaker questioned what kind of demonic technique he had trained. As he stood, the masked man stated that his goal had been accomplished and that he would return once he had mastered the manual. With sword in hand, the guardian declared that he would not let him escape again. The invader then threatened him, saying that the academy he protected would be destroyed if he followed. Even as the dark energy surrounded him, the caretaker remained still, refusing to retreat. With a furious cry, he prepared to unleash all his power. At that instant, he ran his own arm along the sword's blade, activated with his blood. With the weapon cloaked in aura, he vowed that he would not let him escape. The The masked man laughed and dared him to try as a wave of energy surged forward to strike. The guardian then leaped into the air and clashed with the enemy's dark energy. Suddenly, Dean Yu-Tansing arrived at the scene and asked if his uncle was all right. Kneeling on the ground, the caretaker scolded him for his recklessness and his age. With a sword in hand, he stated that he would have killed the invader if not for the Academy's protection. Next, the dean supported the wounded guardian and asked who was responsible for the attack. The uncle then revealed that the invader was Sami Yu, ancient and powerful demonic cultivator. Hearing the name, Yu-Tansing reacted and was surprised, recalling the legend of the demon. He then explained that in order to defeat him in the past, the Alliance of the Righteous had sent more than 30 specialists. A vision of the past then showed the guardian and the other warriors joining forces to face Sami Yu. It was revealed that the demon was only defeated after the sacrifice of more than 20 masters. The caretaker then said that Yu-Tansing should have already realized that this was no ordinary demonic technique. Next, he clarified that Sami Yu's power consisted of controlling the heart demons within people. The dean confirmed that his instincts were correct and that the attackers were manifestations. Even with the guardian insisting that he needed to kill him, his nephew advised him not to waste energy. He then instructed his nephew to notify the Alliance of the Righteous about the imminent war that Sima Yu would soon unleash. With his hand wounded, the guardian gripped the sword's hilt firmly. He then declared that he no longer had the strength to protect the Academy as his blade dissolved into light. When asked about the arena, the dean reassured him, stating that he had already contained all the other demons. Suddenly, Yu-Tansing sensed something wrong and looked to the sky. The caretaker then saw a final heart demon escaping and shouted for it to return for a reckoning. Meanwhile, in the arena, the students commented on how fortunate they were to have instructors to protect them. Before the remains of a creature, the crowd shouted insults, while Wu Lingen observed a hatred toward demonic cultivators. Beside him, Baidi called his name with a flushed face. With that, the girl thanked him for saving her. Right after, she declared that even admitting his help, she would still investigate him to uncover his true identity. The young man looked at her with a surprised expression. Suddenly, a bright light formed behind the competitor. As the last heart demon charged, he pushed her out of danger. With a swift turn, Wu Lingen took the impact of the attack in her place. While holding her, she asked why he had risked himself again, even when he didn't need to. He then looked down with a serious expression on his face. After they sat down, he stated that he seemed fine despite the tear in his clothes. Badi then gave him a light punch on the chest and scolded him for worrying her on purpose. At that moment, Chusham Shou-Yu and Murong Chen approached, with the latter offering food for her to recover. Suddenly, Dean Yu-Tansing appeared in front of them at high speed. The leader then grabbed him to inspect his body, but Chushang Shou-Yu questioned his intentions. With a sharp gaze, Yu-Tansing analyzed Wu Lingen's body closely. The dean confirmed his suspicions and revealed that something had been planted inside him. Soon after, the image revealed that a seed of the heart demon was lodged in his chest. Although furious, the dean promised he would not forgive whoever had implanted the seed into the student's body. Now understanding the seriousness of the situation, Wu Lingen only asked to be released. At that moment, Yu-Tansing observed him closely, finding that reaction quite strange. Soon after, Chushan Shou-Yu shoved the old man forcefully and ordered him to let go immediately. Next, she warned Wu Lingen to keep his distance from that elder, who seemed offended in the background. The dean then asked from afar if he felt any discomfort, but the boy denied it. Even so, Yu-Tansing found it strange that the seed, lethal to any cultivator, did not affect him. Suddenly, the director shouted for them to wait a moment, leaving the two confused. With a smile, he approached again and celebrated the fact that Wu Lingen was a commoner without a spiritual root. Thus, he explained that without spiritual energy, the heart demon could not grow, while Chushan Shou-Yu bit him. Right after, the man floated into the air and quickly ascended, to the couple's surprise. In the distance, Zhongma and Qianji watched the scene. Floating in the sky, Yu-Tansing announced to everyone that despite the setbacks, the exam was officially over. Next, he continued his speech and declared that all students would be evaluated based on their performance that day. With that, the dean released an intense energy and announced that they would receive their respective rankings in dormitories. Soon after, a beam of light struck Wu Lingen's shoulder, making him and Chushan Shou-Yu look back. The director then informed them that all the information had been entered into the admission passes each of them received. Upon checking his, he read that he was assigned to Class D, male dormitory number 8, bed 1. From above, Yu-Tansing ordered all students to return to their dormitories and prepare for the next day's classes. With that, Chushan Shou-Yu celebrated cheerfully and called for him to hurry to the dormitory. On the way, he asked if she had also received a room, but the answer was that she was not a student. With a smile, the young woman leaned closer and said she had other plans. Next, she declared that, as his guardian, it was natural for her to sleep with him. The young man reminded her that he might have a roommate, but she simply suggested expelling him. While Baidi overheard the conversation, she then looked silently at her own admission pass. Soon, the scene shifted to the dormitory area of Shuenshin Academy, where the couple was heading. Carrying his belongings, Wu Lingen commented that the dormitory was in the most remote location and with the weakest concentration of energy. Chushan Shou-Yu grew furious that they placed him there after his performance, but he accepted it since he was a newcomer. Shortly after, they arrived at a sign indicating male dormitory number 8. Upon opening the door, he noticed the light on and commented that his roommate must have already arrived. Finally peeking inside, he introduced himself politely, but fell silent when he saw who it was. Suddenly, Wu Lingyan found himself face to face with Baidi coming out of the bath, covered only by a towel. Slamming the door shut, he gasped in shock, while Tu Shamshoyu questioned him. He then looked at the sign again and confirmed to himself that this was indeed male dormitory number 8. Next, he recalled the kiss in the arena and concluded that what he had seen must have been just an illusion. With that in mind, he decided to open the door once more to confirm his suspicions. Soon he saw Baidi with her back turned, finishing getting dressed, and again fell silent. Next, he closed the door once more and wondered if he was under the effect of some illusion art. At that moment, Baidi opened the door from inside, surprising the two outside. Tu Shamshoyu immediately questioned what she was doing there, but the girl replied that she also lived in that room. To prove it, Baidi showed her pass, which assigned her to bed 2 of male dormitory 8. Not believing it, Tu Shamshoyu accused her of being a man in disguise, but the young woman furiously denied it. Wu Lingyan intervened to confirm that Baidi was a girl, which made his guardian suspicious of how he knew. With that, Baidi explained that she had swapped places with his original roommate, who was now in the best female dormitory. When Wu Lingyan asked why she wanted to stay there, the girl grabbed him and said it was to observe him closely. Baidi explained that she needed to learn his methods, since he was the first person of her age to defeat her. The young man processed the phrase of her age, while a note revealed that he was actually 20,000 years old. After that, he finally entered the room with his belongings. He warned that living together would be troublesome, but the girl said what happened was just an accident. Baidi further argued that if he could live with a fox, he could live with her too, which irritated Tu Shamshoyu. Next, she promised she would only observe him in silence, making him reluctantly agree. Tu Shamshoyu then called him to bed, ignoring Baidi, but he asked if they would really sleep together. She pulled him to her side and said there was no other place, and he ended up agreeing. Already lying down, he felt something watching him while Baidi was on the other bed with her eyes closed. The scene showed a candle going out and Baidi's resting face. Soon after, Wu Lingyan asked Tu Shamshoyu if the academy's invaders were really demonic cultivators. He continued saying that their techniques seemed different from those his father and the others used. With that, Tu Shamshoyu decided she no longer needed to hide his secret. She then revealed that they were not ordinary demonic cultivators, but rather heart demons. As the scene shifted to Zhengyi Peak, a remote place under the moonlight, Wu Lingyan processed the information. At the same time, in a distant magic circle, astral projections discussed Sima Yu's attack on Tuanchen Academy. One of the elders was surprised that the demon was still alive after so long. Soon after, he reported that the invader had injured one of the sages and stolen a secret manual, suggesting the need for more protection. At that moment, the projection of Dean Yu Tangsing intervened to warn of an even more serious problem. With a serious tone, he revealed that the heart demon had appeared in front of all the students. Furthermore, he explained that in order to maintain stability, it had sealed the secret that such creatures were formed from the impurities of cultivators. Faced with this, he questioned how much longer they could keep the secret now that Sima Yu had returned. Then the great elder firmly declared that the current order of the world could not be broken. Shortly after, another man offered that his Tainlong Academy should help deal with the matter as part of the alliance. He further stressed that, as allies, they should face difficulties together, but the dean remained silent. Thus, the elder ended the meeting, assigning the tasks of searching and containing the information to those present. Soon, the astral projections dissipated and vanished from the magic circle. Meanwhile, the silhouettums are despair and questioned how the academy could still be number 1 after being invaded so easily. The image revealed Shen Wai Wan, the dean of Tainlong Academy, who vowed that his school would become the most powerful. Then the scene returned to male dormitory number 8, where the conversation continued. At that moment, Tu Shamshoyu finished her explanation, stating that this was why the heart demons were the greatest taboo of the cultivation world. After a moment of silence, she realized the young man wasn't responding and called out to him. To her surprise, Wu Lingyan had fallen asleep in the middle of her explanation, which left her irritated. Thus, she decided that perhaps it was better he didn't know all the details and adjusted herself to sleep. Shortly after, both of them fell into a deep slumber side by side. In the middle of the night, Baidi suddenly sat up in her bed. At that moment, her eyes glowed with a red light in the darkness. The next morning, the scene showed the dormitory facade already under daylight. Then Wu Lingyan slowly opened his eyes and realized that morning had already come. Beside him, he and Baidi stretched at the same time after a good night's rest. Suddenly, the young man froze and looked to the side, not understanding what was happening. Moments later, the young woman screamed and accused him. Inside the room, the fox awoke with a dark aura and accused the woman of slandering her master. In response, Baidi defended herself and claimed that it was the other who had climbed into the bed and pushed her to the floor. As the argument intensified, the students outside commented that the competition's winner really was a playboy. At that moment, a hand rose to interrupt the quarrel. Back in the room, the young man suggested that maybe Baidi had been sleepwalking and ended up in his bed. The girl desperately denied the accusation, while the fox watched her suspiciously. To calm the situation, he reminded them that it was the first day of class and they couldn't be late. While the girl was getting ready, his guardian asked if he would let her go unpunished, but Wu Lingen only reinforced the importance of class. Suddenly, Instructor Mei Yamli opened the door and asked what the gossiping students outside were doing there. At that moment, the two boys tried to cover it up and said they were just passing by, with no intention of spying. Right after, they ran to class so as not to be late, leaving Baidi watching from the doorway. Then the couple started walking toward the classroom, followed closely by the girl. On the way, the young man asked why she was following them since they were in the same class, but she replied that observing him was more useful. With that, the two bros started arguing again, while Wu Lingen asked them to stop. Soon after, they arrived at the sign indicating the school building of Class D. Even amid the argument, the three entered the classroom together. As soon as they entered, TNG appeared and asked in surprise what Chief Lingen was doing in that class. Right after, he explained that the classes had been divided by performance with Class D intended for the worst students. The young man lamented that his talent had only placed him in the worst class, while Tushan Shouyu complained that he had been ranked first. Suddenly, a voice from the front of the room ordered everyone to be silent. Then Instructor Mei Yanli introduced himself and demanded absolute silence during his lesson. Both Qianji and Wu Lingen were surprised to discover that this master would be in charge of their class. The teacher then decided that he would use one of the boys to set an example on the first day. Soon after, he shouted at Qianji for whispering and hurled a book in his direction. The object flew quickly toward the boy's face. At the last moment, Wu Lingen caught the book and apologized, saying it had been just an instinct. The instructor glared at him angrily for causing trouble, while TNG thanked him in relief. With a thud, Mei Yamli dropped a stack of books on the desk and ordered everyone to be quiet. Next, he announced that he would begin the first lesson at Suwenchen Academy. Soon, the books flew from the pile and distributed themselves to each student. The master explained that this was the Alliance's standard key training manual, and that they were to follow the instructions. At that moment, a student complained that everyone there should already be above the Kai refining stage, to Wu Lingen's surprise. Irritated, the instructor struck the young man with a book and said that techniques could not be compared to the Alliance's. Falling to the ground, the boy was ignored while Baidi questioned why Wu Lingen hadn't defended him. Next, Mei Yamli explained that the Alliance's technique was the safest and that all of them should use it. Soon after, he turned to the class and said that since they already had experience with sheer refining, they would take a test. The instructor threatened to expel anyone who couldn't guide Kai into their bodies by the end of the lesson. While the other students appeared confident, Wu Lingen was visibly nervous about the task. Holding the book, he panicked and wondered what he would do since he had no experience at all. Beiji then closed her eyes to focus on the manual's technique. Right after, she formed a hand seal and channeled her energy according to the instructions. With that, a small sphere of power formed at her fingertips. Next, she fired the beam of energy toward the back of the classroom. The energy struck and destroyed one of the desks to Instructor Mei Yamli's surprise. At that moment, Tushan Shouyu commented that it was impressive for her to succeed on the first try, but still called her a show-off. The teacher approached and praised the student's good work. Soon after, he informed her that she wouldn't have to pay for the broken desk after class. Then Mei Yamli looked at Wu Lingen, doubting he could guide Qi without a spiritual root. Meanwhile, one student noticed the instructor's pants were slipping, but another suggested it was just one of his habits. Beside him, the fox asked him not to push himself too hard, but the young man replied that he needed to feel the energy. He then prepared to begin, while Baidi watched closely and took notes. With great effort, he shouted that he had finally managed to feel energy forming inside him. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed beneath him in the classroom. The scene revealed that he had released gas, leaving Tushan Shouyu and Baidi completely speechless. Collapsed on the floor, he complained that he still didn't feel any energy, making the girl question his training method. Next, he grabbed her shoulders and begged her to teach him how to sense spiritual energy. Even without fully understanding, Baidi explained that he should imagine his body as a bottle and the energy as water flowing inside. With that, Wu Lingen closed his eyes and tried to visualize his body as a bottle filling with water. Shortly after, he commented that he seemed to finally be feeling something. Immediately after, he let out another burst of gas, making the young woman step back while suggesting he try a different method. While other classmates celebrated their success, the young man lamented his failure, and Baidi wondered how he could be so strong without sensing energy. At that moment, the instructor called for attention and warned those who succeeded not to celebrate too soon. He then displayed a sphere of energy to the class, which wondered where it had come from. The teacher threw the spheres of energy to the students who had completed the initial task. One of the students grabbed the energy sphere with both hands. Instantly, the object's weight crushed him to the ground, making him scream in pain. The instructor explained that the sphere was designed to become lighter the more energy was injected into it. The student then struggled to channel his energy into the sphere and lift it off the ground. With a smile, Mei Yamli added that the sphere only accepted energy from the Alliance's technique, otherwise it would become even heavier. Shinjai explained that the game with energy spheres was a popular sport in the cultivation world, something Wu Lingen compared to basketball. With that, the instructor launched several spheres and ordered everyone to use the absorbed energy to fill them completely. Soon, the spheres rolled toward the students, were prepared for the challenge. While Baidi lifted hers with ease, Tianjai still struggled with the weight in his hands. For his part, Wu Lingyan tried to lift one of the spheres, but was warned that brute strength alone would not be enough. Determined not to be expelled, the young man decided to use all of his spiritual energy, which he ended up confusing the physical strength. With his muscles tensed, he strained with all his might to lift the sphere off the ground. At that very moment, Dean Yu Tansing was combing his hair in front of a mirror. Suddenly, he sensed something approaching in the sky and commented on how fast it was arriving. A massive flying ship appeared above the academy, while Shen Wai-wan announced his arrival. From his ship's deck, the visitor observed a beam of light rising into the sky. The light then materialized in front of the vessel, revealing Yu Tansing with his aura of power. In a sarcastic tone, the local dean greeted the newcomer, saying he hadn't had time to prepare a welcoming ceremony. The leader of Teng Long replied that he rushed over and helped as soon as he heard the academy was facing trouble. With suspicion, Yu Tansing remarked on the large entourage, but was told that he also wished to learn from the best academy. Then the host stated with a smile that this was the true purpose of the visit. Suddenly, an energy sphere flew out from the classroom and shot up toward the ship, startling both beings. Moments later, the impact struck the underside of the vessel with great force. On deck, Shen ordered the defenses to be prepared, wondering if demonic cultivators were responsible. Meanwhile, the classroom roof collapsed, causing panic among those inside. As the ceiling split apart, Wu Lingyan raised his hands to shield himself from the falling debris. Soon after, the instructor furiously scolded him for using too much force and destroying the classroom. Amid the dust, Yu Tansing deduced that the boy was causing trouble again. At that moment, he turned toward the silhouette in the smoke and asked if Shen was alright. As the visitor emerged from the cloud, the sphere struck his face, throwing his men into panic. The dean of Shishuanshan explained that it was just the explosion of one of their spheres covering for the boy. Holding the object that had hit him, Shen commented on the power of the blast. Even injured, he suggested using the spheres for a competition, while Yu Tansing recommended that he tend to his wounds. It was then confirmed that there would be an exchange competition between the academies using the energy spheres. Soon after, Dean Yu Tansing began explaining the situation to the gathered students. He then announced that the 5 chosen to represent the academy would be Wu Lingyan, Baidi, Qianji, Zhang Ma, and Shou Fuowo. At that moment, Qianji raised his hand and asked for permission to speak. He began by saying that he understood the traits of the others, since they had been the best students in the admission competition. With that, he argued that his own strength was among the weakest and that he feared embarrassing the academy. The scene then focused on the young man who looked insecure about the decision. Wu Lingyan, for his part, tried to encourage him, reminding him not to underestimate himself since hard work always brings results. Right beside him, Shou Fuowo sneered, saying that if effort alone were enough, you would already have a spiritual root. The dean intervened and stated that Qianji's ability to foresee the future would be a great advantage for the team. As soon as the first concern was resolved, Wu Lingyan raised his hand to ask his own question. He then asked somewhat awkwardly how exactly the energy sphere game worked. At that moment, Baidi explained that it was a 5 versus 5 match, where the goal was to control the sphere and throw it through a gate in the air. She added that although physical contact was forbidden, energy clashes were allowed and essential for victory. Hearing the rules, the young man questioned whether his participation was really a good idea, but Yu Tansing reminded him that the competition was only happening because of him. Right after, the dean informed them that the match would take place in 3 days and that they should use the time to train. With a serious tone, he continued by saying that the reputation of Shuenshan Academy was at stake. To motivate them, he promised to reward each one with a golden medallion upon victory. Then Zhang Mei explained that the medallion was the greatest honor of the academy and guaranteed double cultivation resources. With that, Wu Lingyan became excited at the possibility of finally succeeding in his training. Soon he prepared to start training immediately, but the others did not show the same enthusiasm. Xiao Huavo declared that you would not train with someone incapable of using spiritual energy. Next, Zhang Mei stated that the extra resources meant nothing to him, since his family owned the academy. Baidi then suggested that they ignore the others and train just the 2 of them, leaving Qianji aside. Holding a sphere, she explained that the more energy was injected, the greater the advantage in controlling the ball. At that moment, she challenged Wu Lingyan to try to take the sphere from her hands, and he readily accepted. As soon as he advanced, the girl dodged and explained that the sphere could not simply be grabbed. With a smile, she watched him closely, while an aura of energy formed around her. Wu Lingyan decided to use his speed and advanced surprisingly fast against his opponent. However, she stepped back, saying she would not make things easy for him. With the impact, his hands accidentally pressed against the young woman's chest. The girl then recoiled while the energy sphere rolled away. Right after, Xiao Huobu accused him of doing it on purpose, but Wu Lingyan bowed to apologize. He approached to ask if Baidi was alright, and the young woman replied that she had already put the incident behind her. The girl then averted her gaze and noticed Tu Shen Shao Yu watching from afar with a dark aura. With that, Tu Shang Shou Yu ordered her to stay away from him, while Murong Chen offered food to ease the tense atmosphere. Back in the courtyard, Bai Di composed herself and said they should continue training. At that moment, she formed a hand seal and invoked one of her special techniques. With a circle of swords hovering in the sky, she instructed Wu Lingen to use it as a target to practice his throws. Holding the sphere, the young man realized it wasn't so heavy and that he only needed to practice his aim. He then hurled the sphere with force toward the target and received praise for his accuracy. The energy sphere, however, ricocheted off one of the swords and flew in another direction. At that moment, instructor Mei Yamli appeared furiously and threatened to cut his resources for destroying the academy's facilities. Baiji then asked if he had heard a strange scream, but Wu Lingen quickly changed the subject. Far away, Jin Shenwei Wang observed the scene and commented on the boldness of Shuwenchen Academy. Still holding the sphere, he complained that he had been provoked twice in the same day. One of his disciples, Liang Zifeng, tried to attend to his injuries, but Shen refused, saying that a simple sphere could not hurt him. He then instructed the student to focus on preparing for the competition scheduled in 3 days. With a determined look, he declared that the future of both academies would be at stake in that match. At that moment, Liang Zifeng solemnly swore that he would lead Tinglong Academy to victory against Shuwenchen Academy. The dean praised him as his best disciple, while the young man silently promised not to disappoint him. Determined to win at all costs, Liang Zifeng stared at purple crystal in his hand before the scene shifted. 3 days later, in the courtyard of Shuwenchen Academy, Yu Tangsing stood on the stage for the opening ceremony of the event. He then asked all the students to give Dean Shen a warm round of applause. With that, the visitor stepped onto the stage with his face bandaged while the crowd applauded. Among the students, Wu Lingen and the others commented on the rival dean's strange appearance. Shen then approached the microphone to deliver his speech about the competition. He began with a long and formal talk about the importance of the event, which quickly bored the audience. The speech dragged on monotonously, causing several students in the crowd to start dozing off. Annoyed by the lack of attention, Dean Shen decided he would teach the freshmen of that academy a lesson. On stage, he commented on the simplicity of the training field, but Yu Tangsing countered that he preferred to invest resources directly into the students. In response, Shen offered to build a real arena and pulled out a golden talisman. Immediately after, he struck the ground forcefully and activated a powerful earth technique. A strong tremor shook the area, leading the students to wonder if the academy was being destroyed. Then everyone screamed as they saw a massive structure rising from underground. The young Wu Lingen and Bai Dai stared at the scene, unable to react to what they were witnessing. Finally, a gigantic stone arena rose from the ground, completely enclosing the academy courtyard. Thus, Bai Dai was impressed by the dean's power, while Wu Lingen watched in awe at the cultivator's abilities. From above, the two leaders announced that the competitors should prepare, while the other students headed to the stands. The scene then revealed the stone arena, marked with lines similar to a basketball court. Dean Yu Tangsing turned to his disciples and declared that they needed to win no matter what. Soon after, he introduced the home team, while the young man without a spiritual root looked determined to earn cultivation resources. With a confident smile, Xiao Huavu promised himself that you would shine in that competition. Next, he whispered to his teammate that you would surpass him, leaving the boy confused by the comment. Meanwhile, Yu Tangsing continued the introductions and announced the competitors from Tinglong Academy. The image focused on the leader of the opposing team, Liang Zifeng, who displayed an air of superiority. The scene soon revealed the rest of the rival team, Zhu Long, Lai Luing, Wan Ping, Zhen Lingyu, and their leader, Liang Zifeng. Among them, the competitors Zhen Lingyu encouraged him, but was only met with a warning not to underestimate opponents. Looking at his master, Liang Zifeng promised that he would fulfill the old man's wish at any cost. Then Wan Ping told him to relax and insulted the Shuwenchen Academy's team, calling them trash. At the insult, Qian Ju immediately reacted and shouted that they were not weaklings. The provocateur then challenged him directly, calling him useless, which made the boy even more upset. The Tinglong leader intervened, ordering his ally to stop talking if they would settle everything in the match. At this, Bai Di commented on their arrogance, but her companion noticed they were well-trained. Soon, Zhang Money confirmed the observation, leaving the rest of the team apprehensive. With a serious tone, he revealed that they were all elite talents with long training histories and undefeated in competitions. Qianji scolded him for not mentioning this earlier, but received a response that no one had asked. With a confident air, Xiao Huahu brandished his weapon and said they didn't need to worry since he was there. He then pointed to the opposing team and declared with conviction that he would defeat them. Soon after, the boy prepared to make an oath with the weapon in hand. However, instructor Mei Yamli appeared behind him and took the object, informing him that spiritual treasures were forbidden in the competition. The Tinglong team burst into laughter, mocking him for not knowing the rules and commenting that it would be an easy match. From the stands, Dean Shen mocked Yu Tangsing about his player selection, but received a reply that his opinion was irrelevant. Shen retorted that he looked forward to seeing him admit defeat at the end of the contest. With a serene smile, Yu Tangsing warned him not to underestimate those young ones. Finally, looking at the arena, he declared that he had only placed them there because he truly believed they could win. Instructor Mei Yanli then searched the boy and ordered him to remove the training weights he carried on his body. From above the arena, Yu Tangsing shouted angrily, demanding to know where he hid so many objects. Next, the instructor explained that the match would last 1 hour, with an interval, and that the team with the most points would emerge victorious. With the energy sphere in hand, he told everyone to prepare for the start of the game. As Tanglong Academy's team positioned themselves on their side of the court, waiting for the opening whistle, the Etsuenshin team also assumed their positions. Right after, the sphere was thrown into the air, along with the command to begin. Determined to get the first possession, Wu Lingen jumped confidently, but was quickly surprised to see someone soar past him midair. Shima Hu leaped above him and declared that the first point would be his. Before he could reach the sphere, Liang Zifeng suddenly appeared and slapped it away, taking possession. He then passed the ball to his ally Wang Ping, who grabbed it firmly while still in the air. With control of the sphere, Wang dashed swiftly across the court, while TNG positioned himself to try to stop him. The opponent looked at him with a disdainful smile and asked if he really thought he could stop him. In shock, TNG watched the enemy's speed pass him at an incredible pace. In a single move, Wang Ping scored the first point, putting the scoreboard in their favor and leaving the boys stunned by his speed. The instructor announced the score as 1-0, while the two deans watched in absolute silence. On the winning side, the Tenlong team mocked them, saying the rivals were far too weak. Undeterred, Baidi took the ball and warned her teammates to stop fighting among themselves. With the plan in mind, she assumed the lead of the attack and advanced, counting on her allies' protection. In front of her, Liang Zifeng positioned himself, confident no one could get past him. But the young woman slipped by him in the blink of an eye, leaving him stunned. At the same moment, the other Tenlong players united to form a defensive barrier. Before they could reach her, Shou Huovu leaped beside her and unleashed his energy, clearing a path forward. He then knocked the three opposing players down with a powerful energy wave. Immediately, Instructor Mei Yanli showed Xiu Hu a yellow card for maliciously injuring opponents. With the card in hand, he declared that there were no teams in the arena, only justice. Despite the foul, Baidi continued to play and prepared to shoot the ball. Should he confidently determine the score, but Zhu Long quickly positioned himself to block the attack. At that moment, the opponent bit into a piece of meat he held. Right after, a shockwave from the ground hurled Baidi back with great force. The scene revealed that Zhu Long had transformed into a reptilian monster and regained possession of the sphere. As soon as she hit the ground, a black shadow sped past her side. The shadow then struck the energy sphere in the monster's hands. Afterward, the ball was hurled directly to Liang Zifeng, who praised the play with satisfaction. He advanced with the sphere in hand, ready to strike the opponent's field. Zhangma and Qianji prepared to intercept him as he charged with an intense aura of energy. Without difficulty, he broke through their defense and scored the second point of the match. The instructor then announced the score as 2-0, while Zhen Lingyu praised her leader's skill. After the basket, Liang Zifeng turned to face Wu Lingen and Shou Huovo. The two were surprised, not understanding the intention behind that look. With a confident smile, he pointed at them and declared that he would not allow them to score a single point in the match. Guys, that's the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a comment in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Like the video and share it too. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.